Alright, looks like everything's responsive. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? Hang on. Doesn't look like my Fugi's actually doing anything. Did Discord boot me out of that voice chat? It might have. Oh, my settings are borked because I had an update, of course. I'm not running anything through VoiceMod today. Do not fuss with me on this. There we go. I'll get this set up eventually, just not right now. Did not actually apply. It didn't apply the settings. Fuck you. I never show my Discord. I don't need streamer mode on this. Just cooperate with me for a hot second. No, not that one. I'll have to re-enable afterwards, assuming I remember. Okay. I believe that is going to respond now. Hopefully this time the settings stick. Not seeing anything show up on the Twitch overlay. Are we fully operational now? Good. Okay. In that case, let's send out the notification and I'll get the show on the road. Just wouldn't be the same if my PC wasn't kicking up steam. Okay. I need to re-enable streamer mode before I forget. Can I even do that without breaking something else in the audio settings? Because it will say I'm unresponsive again, motherfucker. It looks responsive at the moment. Hang on. Is it staying responsive? No. Reconnect to that general chat. Alright, there we are. Now it's functional enough. Good. Let me minimize that. I will take care of streamer mode later. Send out the notification. And is the Twitch overlay adequately responsive? Yes, okay. Looks like there's only a minimal delay. Good. Now I'm making sure to have my desktop audio set to negative 20 decibels or minus, like, whatever. I'm catching up on some YouTube listening while I draw. And I will try to speak when I have something worth saying. As for what's worth saying at the moment, we've already shown off the art for Omnicidal, which is coming out this Friday, but just in case you want to get another sneak peek, I will be putting up a 4K by 4K version of this on my X account on the day of the debut, so feel free to check in then if you want to download a higher quality version. Otherwise, we will have this one for the time being. Screenshot it at your leisure. Might be a few gigabytes too many for my RAM, so it'll take a hot minute to load. But you can hear my PC ramping up. It is trying. So I hope we're all having a lovely Monday evening, in so much as a lovely Monday as possible. Tonight we're going to be working on the single art for not this week's single debut, but next month's. I don't know if that's going to show up in the recording, but the image operation is trying to complete. That bar is taking a sweet time filling. This week on Friday, we have Omnicidal debuting at 11 a.m. EST. Next month, however, that's what we're doing this single art for. Next month. So you'll get to see my brain devolve in close to real time. Probably gonna take a night or two. I still have to finish the lyric video for this Friday's single as well. Don't worry, I'm not gonna make you sit through that. Just the drawing. Okay, that bar is halfway full. Image operation's gonna be there. Hey Cinder, how you doing? I appreciate you working. Much love back at ya. Just trying to get some files up, ready to show off. Working on some new art for tonight. Showing off what's going to be coming later this week with Omnicidal. I already showed off this art last month with the debut of Futility of Flesh, but I figure, why not take a look at it in the original file? See if I can break something. My bad, I guess I should say. If I'm awake and you're streaming, I'm here. Oh. You don't really talk about it. Same difference. If I weren't hooked up to a microphone, I would not be making noise either. I've been told I have that in common with horror movie monsters, slasher flicks in particular. People say I just kind of show up. I don't like making noise if I can help it. And somehow I don't like playing spies or snipers. I guess that's a non-transferable part of the skill set. Okay, the bar is full, so it should pop up any second. There we go. This is the single art for the song I'm going to be debuting this Friday, Omnicidal. It is the second song off of the Imprint album, 2025. So, Futility of Flesh, already out in the wild. This one, you know what? Just in case I want to throw all subtlety to the wind. Oh, hang on. Val, LOL. Anyways, I'm gonna go do some stuff. Much love. Much love right back at you. So if anybody thought that was too subtle with the color scheme and all, and you're wondering who or what the song is mildly alluding to, check this out. Yeah, this is going to be in the thumbnail for a reason. So, a certain tungsten rodent, if you will. I wrote Omnicidal for at least a half dozen inspirations, but this one's probably pretty close to the forefront. For reasons I've yet to discern, Omnicidal is one of 2, maybe 3 songs in here that has at least a hint of Superman in it as well. Blame my childhood cartoon habits. More so the cartoon habits than the comic habits. If I was going comics back in the day, it would have probably been Batman or Daredevil. Now on to today's design. We're going to need to start by getting these pleating hands out. So I'm going to do a basic paint layer, tracing those, and figure out how much I can just rip. I'm probably going to steal what's visible on our right, his left hand, and just duplicate that, because I prefer the posturing over... I prefer this palm and the angles on the fingers over the opposite hand. So, let's get to it, shall we? I'm gonna find a little something I can put on as background ambiance. How about some Diablo 4? I need to catch up on this. I have not even touched it, aside from downloading an update and logging in once since Vessel of Hatred came out. So, let's see what I got saved. It feels like a decent playlist. Okay, this'll do. I'm going to be alternating between Rage Gaming Video and Darth Microtransactions TV, most likely. I don't think I've got any other Diablo creators in here, but I could be wrong on that. I'm just going for a bunch of Diablo stuff because I'm trying to catch up on Vessel of Hatred.
Oi, Ladies, gentlemen, and Hierogramable, latest the Vessel of Hatred expansion releases for Diablo 4 next week.
And that was my phone hitting my keyboard at Mach 2. Okay, let me push this out of the way. I put it on silent, and then I threw it at something. Too easy. Okay.
Ladies, gentlemen, and Hierogramable, latest the Vessel of Hatred expansion releases for Diablo 4 next week, along with the start of Season 6, whether you've bought the expansion or not. Tomorrow we have the final developer stream before all of this upcoming content, and it will be revealing a ton of info, including changes that have been made from the PTR that was held ahead of time for this, as well as new info about what Season 6's actual seasonal power-up mechanic will be. And of course, there are also just new bits of information on the activities included in the expansion too. However, there is news to go over before that even happens and steals the entire spotlight away from it, and its importance will vary from person to person, of course, but it's always nice to stay up to date on things. First things first, then we have the official around-the-world international release schedule for the expansion. The release is on October 8th. However, of course, they can't have a multiplayer game like this really release in a staggered way. It has to launch at the same time, and so what that means is that it will launch in different times and different time zones as a result. So what they've done is to have the game release on October 8th as much as possible, with the exceptions being an actual early release on the 7th in the American time zones. The main spread of this goes from 4 p.m. Pacific time on the 7th all the way to noon in New Zealand on the 8th. And this, of course, does also mean the Diablo developers can be on site and responsive if anything needs to be fixing or patched or hotfixed, whatever, right after launch, as 4 p.m. is still a reasonable time in California. Aside from this, along with that, we also got the timings that you'll be able to preload Vessel of Hatred, as it is a fairly sizable game update along with it. And for Battle.net NPC, this has actually already started yesterday, so you can already get on that
Vessel of
right now.
Hatred
If you
update.
have
I
any
think
sort
it
of information,
was
prepared for launch.
like 8
Otherwise, for
gigs
consoles,
or
Xbox,
something
and
crazy
PlayStation, you can start to
before
preload
the
expansion on
expansion
October
came
5th,
out,
specifically
and
48
the
hours
day
exactly
of it
before
was
the
like
exact launch of the
40.
game. So I guess it is also October
The
6th.
high end of
This
30
will not be an excessive amount of time for consoles, should still be more than enough for most players to have the
I still
download downtime,
downloaded it.
especially as the game does require you to have internet to run in the first place, so it's not really a surprise, but this is definitely worth
Not my
mentioning.
favorite Diablo, but
It is,
I
however,
am
also
going
worth
back
mentioning that
for
there will be
Diablo
no
4,
preloading for
just
Steam
not
users, only for Battle.net on
immediately.
PC. Along with this, we also have a confirmation of what is and isn't required to buy the expansion to do, so that you know what is still new and accessible even if you don't want to pay for the upgrade. And to be clear, the list of things that you get to interact with for free are the new progression system as a whole, the new Tarragon system, the changes to items and the stat switch and all that stuff too, 2 new character slots so you don't have to delete the old characters at the start of a season, all the quality of life changes as well, the new class content being the skills and passives, the party finder feature, which is quite excellent when it's working properly, and of course everything that is Season 6 specific, which we do again know the main turn clue from the PTR being realm walkers and portals. So it should be interesting at the very least just based off of that information. Everything else that is new for the most part is just expansion exclusive. This includes a number of activities which generally are optional, they're not really required for anything, but it does mean that you are locked off from things like rune words specifically, which are an important part of power moving forward, honestly, as well as the mercenary system too, which is looking to be relatively powerful for solo clearing content, even if they do disappear when you are in groups. So for the most part, this means you can still achieve the same power level without the expansion as you could with, but there are those 2 discrepancies which are definitely worth making some note of. Then we have a slight announcement as well that there are specific cosmetics tied to the Dark Citadel activity, the actual activity that requires you to have 2 or more players in your group to even do it, and specifically cosmetics tied to defeating the challenge it offers within the first month after release, being the Long Fur Beast mount, which is a unique mount offered for completing this activity and for nothing else. One of the biggest community complaints in the base game in previous seasons is that the shop has a ton of stuff sold for real money that looks pretty good, but the game itself has had an awkwardly low amount of cosmetic rewards for things like endgame activities or things like that, and this is a direct answer to those concerns, to those requests, and that is nice to see. So we'll have to see the actual quality in game of what this looks like, of course, before we can properly judge it when it comes out. On top of that, there are also 3 pretty solid looking new free weapon cosmetics that you can claim from the shop at the launch time as well. Then we have our next announcement here, which is the return of Twitch drops and the support a streamer event too. All of this culminating in just sort of a bunch more cosmetics for players to acquire. The first set are Twitch drops themselves, which are fully free to get if you have a Twitch account and your Battle.net account attached to that as well. All you need to do is watch Diablo streams on Twitch for up to 6 hours each week post-launch to get the full sets of cosmetics. For the first week, the rewards for the drops are for Sorcerer and Necromancer, and these are essentially purple and green recolors of a staff and sight, and then a back trophy for each class as well, which is unique to the sort of Nahantu visual style. In week 2, we have Barbarian, 3 hours of watch time for the green and purple Competitor's Pride 2-handed axe skin, the other 3 hours for the Barbarian back trophy. Week 3 is going to be rogue specific with a couple of different colored new bow cosmetics, again a purple and a green one, and a rogue specific back trophy too. Then in week 4, the final week of these, we have the Druid drops of a 2-handed staff with 2 colors once again, as well as the Druid back trophy. There are no Twitch drops for Spearborn, it seems, which is pretty reasonable, honestly, given that all of the cosmetics for the class will just be new by default by virtue of not being in the game before this season and the expansion too. Then we have the support a streamer system, which means if you gift 2 Twitch subs to a streamer who is playing in the Diablo 4 category, whoever they are, you will be eligible for the Ghost of the Conquered mount, which is actually a pretty high quality looking horse, at least in my opinion, and at 4 gifted subs total, meaning including those first 2, so 4 overall. You also gain the Glory of the Victor mount armor to match your horse too, giving it a very lovely and fitting aesthetic style for entering the Hantu and the Vessel of Hatred expansion. Then finally, just a heads up that we are now 3 days away from the embargo lift for Vessel of Hatred and all the people who had access to the review build. Of course, no story things will be talked about in detail by anyone who has any self-control, so you don't really need to worry about story spoilers unless you don't trust someone. But that does mean that we can start talking about the quality of everything new and the actual details as well when that timer hits. So let us know exactly what parts of the expansion you would like to hear about from us before you get into the game yourself. That just about does that, everyone, for today. Not a massive amount of different bits of news, so much as just a couple of relatively bigger bits, a lot of cosmetics, and the official release times for the expansion and the season as well, which of course starts at the same time. I hope you've all enjoyed this then, and of course, let us know your own thaughts on any of this stuff down in the comments below.
Yeah,
like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweets.
Just throw that.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.
plenty of
An
D4
important bit of
content
news today. We're going to break down multiple bits of new information that's just been released. Diablo 4 expansion might be launching earlier than you actually think it is due to some clarity when they said it was going to launch versus when it's actually being launched. Time off, etc. We're going to break that down so you know exactly when it's coming out. There are some free cosmetics coming out of the game too. We'll address here at the beginning. And also there's some Path of Exile 2 early access news in terms of how you can get into it and what's going to be available in content. So all that and more in today's video. Let's get going. Okay, first bit of news. There will be free cosmetics that will be launching for Twitch drops. I will be doing a 24-hour stream on the launch of the Diablo 4 expansion so you can farm these weekly Twitch drops. You see there's Sorcerer, Necromancer, there's Barbarian, there's Rogue, there's Druid. Then there's also the supported streamer. 2 gifted subs gets you the horse, 4 gets you the horse plus armor. Now what's interesting about this is these drops start October 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific. However, this is not when the actual launch of the game comes out. You would think that the Twitch drops would be at the start and launch of the game. It actually is launching a little bit earlier. Now here's an actual map showing the launch times. If you look at this, this is October 7th and October 8th. Now when they do these launch times, they say the game comes out October 8th, like they did with the June 6th when the game originally launched. They're always talking about when it's available basically for everybody. But if you look at this, the Pacific time here, October 7th, 4 p.m. PDT, meaning this game is going to come out for you earlier if you're in North America than you would expect. The Twitch drops start 10 a.m. on the 8th, but the game itself launches at 4 p.m. on the 7th. They also mentioned it's the last chance for the pre-purchase rewards if you're somebody who cares about the wings or just cosmetics. Basically, there's no other reason to buy this unless you just want the cosmetics. Pre-ordering does not give you earlier access than just buying the game when it's already out. So if you're thinking about doing a pre-order or something because you think you're going to get in at the October 7th time, etc., that is for everybody who just owns the game. You do not have to pre-order for early access. This time, there's also a pre-download. You can install it early in case you're someone who takes a long time to install a game or bad air or something like that. You can just download it early. It is now available on Battle.net, and October 5th, it will be available on console, so multiple days before the game's actually out. The campaign can be directly started, meaning if you want to make a level 1 character that can go straight to the new campaign because you've already played the previous campaign, you can do that. Now, there are some things that are locked behind the expansion. However, the things that are available to all people who still own just the original Diablo is the new reworking of the system, basically Paragon system, max level, new class skills for the classes that are already in the game. So the things that are locked behind the Vessel of Pantheon featured expansion are the new region, Spiritborn class, the new campaign, the region renowned for the new area, makes sense. The Rune Words is an interesting one too. If you want to use Rune Words, that is locked behind the expansion. Mercenaries, Dark Citadel, the Undercity, and trading for the specific materials that come from the expansion. There's also a cat mount that you can earn from beating the Dark Citadel in the expansion, which is interesting. They mentioned like cosmetic armors before, but I don't think they actually mentioned the mount before, which is kind of dope because one of my feedback points when they were selling the mounts before was you should really add like free mount rewards for people that are beating your in-game content. So we kind of are. In other game launch news, Path of Exile 2 Early Access had a Japanese interview that got translated in which we got a significant update in terms of information about what's actually going to be available in the Path of Exile 2 Early Access release. So this is the article. It's on Game Watch, which you can tell it is a a journalist website because it's just full of a whole bunch of fucking video game ads. Luckily, it has been translated on a Reddit post, and here is the actual breakdown. It says as follows: Early access to this work is scheduled to begin worldwide on November 15th. We're going to have 3 acts and in-content. So they're going to have, there's 6 acts that are supposed to be in the game. The first 3 acts will be available, but also the in-game content, which is interesting. How is the in-game content going to happen at the end of halfway through the acts? Well, they could relaunch the campaign and make it where you have higher level difficulty as you go through. There could be a mapping system or something that we're not aware of, and you just go into maps after Act 3. We actually don't have any information on what the in-game of Path of Exile 2 looks like, but the in-game system is supposed to be in the game at least. As far as the cadence of release of the other acts, they say their goal is to implement all acts in about 6 months. There's no specific schedule, but they're going to use community feedback to help dictate this. What's interesting is in a rare thing for Reddit, you read the comments and people actually don't seem to care. They're like, that seems fine. I'm just going to play the game. It's ready when it's ready. There are some comments about some people being disappointed considering that they've said in multiple interviews they expected the full campaign to be available in early access. As recently of June, there were some interviews kind of talking about how they're cutting back a little bit on availability. This doesn't surprise me terribly too much, to be quite honest, because when we went down and tested the game, we only were able to get through the first like 3. I think some people might have made it into partway into Act 4, but most people were only able to get the first start of the first few acts. They delayed a bit of the game because of WASD. So the first reason that the beta got delayed in Path of Exile 2 was the addition of WASD, and they realized with the addition of WASD, they allowed them to do a lot of the other things related to the skills and the movements in the game, how to design the bosses. So they started to go back and retweak things in order to improve the quality of the game. Whether or not that has anything to do with the acts, I doubt, but that was the first original delay of the early access. Okay, so now the question is, all right, that's the early access. You want to play it, how do you get in? Well, the most recent information we have is another of these Tokyo Game Show Japanese interviews in which they basically said early access is paid, but release is free to play. This should come at no surprise. This is something that has been stated multiple times. Now, the part that people are debating about is what is the price point going to be? I believe in one of the interviews they stated that the $480 pack is guaranteed, but not required. So it could be as cheap as $30. We don't really know at this point. It's also supposed to be cumulative, so if you're a Path of Exile 1 enjoyer who has played the game for a while and continually spent more and more on cosmetics, your cumulative spend on the account should get you in, or at least that's my understanding. If you're wanting the actual words he said, this is the translation here. We're going up Google Translate here, but it says early access is paid, but eventually it'll be free, and I think a lot of people will play it, so we want to be able to accommodate it as much as possible. Again, no exact dollar amount. So your next 2 months of RPGs is looking like this. October 4th, the embargo lifts, and myself, as well as all the other content creators, starts talking about reviews about what we think about the expansion, if you haven't purchased the game, whether or not it's worth your money. Then October 8th is the actual launch of that expansion, which will hold you over until November 15th, when we get the paid early access for Path of Exile 2, which will be the next 3 acts, or I should say the first 3 acts and the in-game of it, which will then steadily release the rest of the game throughout the life of the early access. If you're looking for more Path of Exile 2 news, I want to do a shout out to my good friend Talk to the Tree, a real positive guy that's just a joy to talk to, and also has good videos available. He talks about Path of Exile 2 pretty much on a daily basis, so if you're looking for more content around it, he's always uploading all of the recent news there. Highly recommend him. That's about it, so I'll see you October 7th for a 24-hour Diablo 4 expansion live stream, as well as you can subscribe to this channel if you want to see more information related to the Diablo 4 expansion when the embargo lifts on October 4th. That's about it. Thanks for watching. Love you all, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, one more off the list. Oh, I do have a bunch of Monster Tamer stuff from Gym Leader Ed saved as well. If I finish all the Diablo stuff, then I'll go to Monster Hunter. Or Monster Tamers. I wish I could be going Monster Hunter tonight. I got so
Something
far last
strange
night.
arrived today.
And my player crashed.
Something mysterious.
There we go.
Yet strangely alluring. A suitcase lashed in vines. A suitcase from Nahantu, beckoning me, willing me to open it and to accept an invitation. Hello, my fellow soon-to-be Vessel of Hatred players. I hope you are doing well on this fine day in hell. A huge thank you then to Diablo for both sponsoring this video and sending me this delightfully devilish package containing everything you'd want to know for a fantastic little getaway to Nahantu. A break as a powerful spirit-born and a lovely sightseeing tour through all the horror the new expansion its zones and denizens will bring. But where to begin? Well, let's start right here. Dear traveller, however well you think you know Nahantu, it's time to experience these twisted lands, which are symptoms of Mephisto's deep grasp on this once flourishing land. Discover what dark machinations lay in wait, and the powerful tools you can wield to face them. We're calling on the world's mightiest heroes to visit our jungles, to enjoy the many amenities, and to possibly save us from hatred's corruption. With plains, ruins, foliage, and the crater, the destination is steeped in history, a melting pot of cultures, heritage, and civilizations risen, fallen, lost, and rumored. As the only travel operator entirely dedicated to and operated from the region, the Nahantu Tourist Board invite you to embrace the vast jungles and ferocious demons in a way few ever have. We offer you the complete Nahantu experience on a journey that digs past the surface to reveal the real heart beating under the hellish overgrowth of Karast, the barren plains of Teganze, and the dark citadel. Secure your tickets now to embark on your glorious journey through the jungle. We can't promise you won't die, in fact you almost certainly will, but we can promise sights and sounds beyond anything you've seen in Sanctuary thus far. Yours sincerely, Ben Stevens, Jungle Travel Consultant. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds like the perfect holiday for me, and hey, I hope you all join me. Yes, it's time to have a little look at Vessel of Hatred, what we'll find there, and what we'll be doing there, courtesy of the Nahantu Tourist Board, and this lovely little holiday package they've sent me. I don't care about all the dying and demons when there's this much fun to be had, like these lovely places to visit. You've got Karast, formerly the capital of Kyrgyzstan. This is the main town that we'll be staying at in Vessel of Hatred. You've got the Teganze Plains, where we can meet the lovely Kazra, who I'm sure will give you a friendly welcome. The former headquarters of the Church of Zakharum. It had the Temple of Lights and the High Council of Zakharum, now abandoned, and threats abound. The Dark Citadel, of course. A unique experience, a massive sprawling dungeon in Diablo for multiple players to conquer its challenges with ridiculously cool bosses inside. And all this is just the tip of the iceberg. The new region of Nahantu is promising to offer some incredibly cool, diverse new zones and the enemies to go along with them. Then we have ourselves the newest way to conquer and slay through them. The Spiritborn, the brand new class, and indeed one that has a little something for everyone. Spiritborn, we must steel ourselves. A new sickness begins to take root in our jungle, born of an old monstrosity. We must be courageous and embrace our apex predator to fight, tapping into the strength of our spirit guardians directly from the spirit realm, to rise up and save Sanctuary. 4 beasts, 1 you. Who will you choose to remove demon heads from bodies? Rizoka the Jaguar, battle with blazing fury, relentless momentum and overwhelming speed, keeping your enemies on their toes with fiery tooth and claw. Wumba the Gorilla, with unrelenting strength and incredible defense, you can quite literally crush your enemies. Quackly the Eagle, the perfect ally for a quick escape for when death is a little too close for comfort. Quackly brings pinpoint precision and lightning speed to the battlefield, leaving your foe slain in a blow of feathers and burning plasma. Balazan the Centipede, if you want to melt your enemies with caustic beams of toxic sludge, while draining them of their life essence, this is the Guardian for you. Focus and embrace the strength bestowed upon you. Heed your instincts and remember the Spirit's teaching. We aim to defend Nahantu, and will fight until it is restored. Oh yes, the Spiritborn really is looking phenomenal. We have had the fortunate chance to play it ourselves multiple times in hands-on sessions, and it really is a ridiculously entertaining class with some already bonkers synergies and combos using your guardians and the powers that they bestow. I really cannot wait to crack that endgame open with all of its signature uniques and really pump out some seriously ridiculous builds for you guys to enjoy, so, stick around for that. And you can indeed play through the original Diablo 4 campaign as the new class Spiritborn if you want to experience everything all in one go with that shining new spin, which is really, really cool. Like and honestly, the fact that the Spiritborn, the protectors of the Nahantu jungle, are now having to come face to face with hell proper due to Mephisto being contained in the Soulstone, with Neyrel taking it to Nahantu, and that unfolding in a Vessel of Hatred, it really is the perfect way to introduce them to us. But the greatest treasure is yet to be revealed. Beneath the magic lies the Book of Lorath. This ancient tome is all you could ever need to know for the upcoming battle with Mephisto. Loreth the Heradrim, a scholar and font of knowledge on all things demon, powerful and magical in Sanctuary. Within is the greatest guide to every advantage we could seek, and as they say, knowledge is most certainly power. This thing is absolutely awesome, and it has so many cool little tidbits of Diablo past and Nahantu future, and it's really, really phenomenal to sift through. The illustrations are marvelous as well, and I cannot stress enough how much more confident I now feel for all that Vessel of Hatred is going to throw at me. So visit Nahantu on the 8th of October, and as they said, you might die, but your corpse will have a smile on its face. Oh yes, I should say then very excitingly that we will be part of a big Diablo streaming event for Vessel of Hatred on the 9th of October. More details to come, but mark it in your calendar, it's going to be good. And past that, yeah, again, a huge thank you for this ridiculously cool and creepy travel package to Nahantu, and if I wasn't already very excited, which I most certainly was, I am now, and I hope you guys are too, and I hope I will see you all there in the jungles. For now though, keep an eye out for more to come. Like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, I'm good.
Because it's probably going to end up about
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing
size.
entertainment on a daily
I don't
arrangement
want
to
to
take our
shoot
insanity
too
and turn it into
much,
entertainment.
but
I
I
said
want some more
entertainment twice.
detail
To
in
reiterate that it is nice to again see your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes and make a whole world of stage.
Then I'll shrink it. Because what I'm going to be adding in here is, let me see. I need another set of hands grasping a broadsword held. So my Twitch overlay crashed. Let me refresh that. Make sure we aren't completely cratered. Twitch is still misbehaving. Just move that around, see if we get it responsive. I am recording locally, so failing this, any moments in the stream that are interrupted, I can make readily apparent in the VOD on YouTube. But something has crapped out entirely. You can load ads, but you can't actually load my own goddamn overlay in that peachy. I wish I was surprised. Refresh the overlay, you fucking garbage. Okay, are we responding again? Okay, we are back on with minimal delay. Good. So, as I was saying before, I want to get some more basic details on these arms, but they're not going to be the only set of hands or arms in the design. I need one more pair that's gripping the handle of a broadsword. I don't know if I'm going to incorporate the sheath or just the blade. The blade will be shooting from the second set of hands to penetrate the first set of hands, and then we will be using the blood spray off of that to form the outline of a crown. Let's see if... Yeah, let me find the other set of hands I'm going to need. Then we'll go into some more basic details. Actually, no, wait. I can't get a straight profile shot that I like for this angle. Maybe... I don't know why you're half-handing it like that, but... Oh, actually, there's a... This can work. I was trying to get an image of Ned Stark holding Longclaw before he executes the fleeing member of the Night's Watch, but I can work with this. It's a screenshot from a prop replica video, a 12-hour DIY, and it's more modeled off of Jon Snow's holding, but even Jon Snow doesn't hold it the way I like. So this guy, I'm going to have to extrapolate a little bit, because he's got one hand on the handle, another hand on the blade. But I can work with that. Yeah, Okay. Let me just throw this into Critic quickly. Going to get rid of anything I don't need. Let's keep at least half of the forearms in shot. I'm not going to be aping Longclaw's design for this. I do have a blade in mind. That should be enough for me to work with. Okay. Not showing up with the new file on my desktop just yet. Oh, there we go. Okay, I don't need that one anymore. I don't need this one as a KRA. I just need you. I'm gonna blow you up a smidge too. These hands look approximately the same size. Will that gel? Needs a little more volume, actually, just a smidgen. Let's call that 5–10%. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to worry about this one right now. I want to put some more basic details on the first pair of hands. Respond, damn you. Oh, come on. You're not even using 2 gigs of RAM for this run right now. I have 32. That one down here. I don't need it right now. Start a new layer. That's on the same layer, isn't it? Gotta catch that before you forget it. should be enough. I just have to distort some angles now. Try to make that look more wrapped around. Yeah. Oh, that's where I put it. Okay. 3 layers wasn't... 4 feels better, especially if it's got 4 colors within each square as well. Yeah, okay. I think that'll work better, yeah. Surprised that's coming out looking as flat as it did, but it does lose the curvature without these here. Yeah. Same thing on the top side. Okay.
Ladies, gentlemen, and hurrah of all ages, with a new week comes new news in the world of Diablo 4. Entering the weekend, the developers left us with one final hotfix before taking a bit of a break, and it made massive changes to Forgotten Souls and their drop rates. We talked about this when the actual hotfix hit, but now that we've had the weekend to play with this and these new rates, I can officially say, holy crap, this made such a massive difference instantly. I am no longer more bottlenecked by Forgotten Souls than I am by Obdicite when trying to do masterworking, especially if you are at the point of being able to run bosses sort of on repeat, like the ladder bosses. You can farm loads of Forgotten Souls in a very short amount of time because of these. Aside from this, there was also a smaller client patch with some important bug fixes that hit right before the weekend that we actually didn't talk about, 2.0.2c. The main thing this changes is fixes for Varshan's barrier to make it just far less ruthlessly unkillable, and while this definitely has taken effect, you can feel the difference. There are still some instances where it feels like it just gives them such an insanely large barrier, then so much larger than it should be, and it makes it very difficult to kill if you aren't in spirit form. It's far less frequent than it used to be when this happens, but it still feels like it exists, so I would say just stay cautious, especially if you're on a hardcore character. Don't necessarily go into this until you know for sure that you're good. The other main fix was for a bunch of people who literally just could not log into the game at all. An error was starting to spin around, which just prevented people from going in, so they squashed it as quickly as they could. Then just some other various bug fixes happened in the patch. That covered them, there are a few other things to be aware of in the community, but they mostly center around one big topic, game updates. We know that there are more hotfixes planned in general, and we should expect one every couple of days really for the time being, but then there are a number of breadcrumbs to be followed towards a client patch that will be happening for the game relatively soon, and what might be a part of it. The specific patch then would be called 2.0.3. We see this reference to in responses about the Lilith Resplendent Spark bug, which makes her just not drop it for some people, and we've been told that when this is fixed, it will also retroactively apply to give people who have already killed Lilith their own Resplendent Spark. The other main thing that we are pretty certain about is the return of the undroppable items. Before the season started, a forum post went out by devs warning us that 4 specific items had been disallowed from dropping or functioning in Season 6. Frostburn, Azarath, the Shroud of False Death, Mythic Unique Chest, and the Agile Wolf legendary aspect for Druids. These were all causing some sort of problems, either for performance or for balance reasons, and were unable to be fixed before the season started, so what they did was just disable them from being able to drop for players before the patch hit. We've since been told then both that their return would be part of the first major client patch, and that they would be returning in patch 2.0.3, which means that 2.0.3 is the first major client patch, but obviously, well, due to the general name of it going to a new number over previous patches, it could have been reasonable to assume it would be a major patch anyways, but this just confirms it. Then, as for the timing, there have been multiple responses about audio being bugged on consoles, with Spiritborn especially quite heavily, and this is obviously something that would require a client patch to actually correct, as a hotfix just couldn't really fix an issue like that, and we know that this fix is slated for some time within the next week or so, which stands to reason that this would line up with the theoretical 2.0.3. We could definitely say it makes sense to expect this major patch relatively soon as a result, meaning either this week or next week at the latest, I would say. Past that, something that we've seen response from is complaints about the Realm Walker seasonal events, and how it's just sort of too long and very unfun to follow across an entire desert or a tundra or whatever zone you happen to be in, taking multiple minutes just to start being fightable even to begin with. The main response is just that the team is looking into this. They are talking about it internally. We know that they've heard a lot of feedback about this, and specifically this part of Realm Walkers, and so while I wouldn't say we should plan for changes to this in 2.0.3, I would say that it is a possibility that we will have changes to this. Outside of that, there's a whole other topic or something that may be addressed in a patch with a full-on number increase, which is balance. Specifically, balance focused around bugs. There are theoretically a few bugs that are making various classes weaker than they should be, and hopefully could be fixed to make them stronger. As well, there's also Spiritborn, who has a number of bugs making them much, much stronger than they should be, like hundreds of times more damage than they should be doing. Like a Paragon node that is supposed to scale depending on maximum life, accidentally scaling based on your base life, which means you can hit thousands of % bonus damage by just stacking life as an actual affix, instead of what was originally intended to be capped at like a 33% damage bonus. So if you're wondering where Spiritborn silly damage is coming from, it's actually not purely because they wanted the expansion class to be strong, though I'm sure that is a part of it. It is heavily because of a number of different bugs that are overlapping and being switched together by players. As well, there's the Evade Spiritborn build, which, while not overly buggy in itself, is causing other players a bit of performance issues when used out in the open world. A lot of people saying that the lag it creates in something like Helltide can be unplayable if there's multiple Spiritborn with this build. I've not experienced it playing the build myself, but obviously it's different when other players' effects. The devs have always said that their goal is never to nerf something mid-season unless it is literally breaking the game, and so I would say it's not unlikely some sort of change could happen to this build in the upcoming patch as well. Whether it is something that changes the balance of it to make it shoot out less feathers, but each one does more damage in compensation, or if they do just something like server-side to make it less taxing on people's computers. I don't know what the change is, but mostly what I hope is that if they fix this, they do it in a way that both makes it less of an issue for the people who are just trying to exist in the world. Sure, I don't think that they should have this like drive-by lag storm destroying their PCs, but also I don't want them to ruin the build, either the functionality of it or the damage either. Evade Spiritborn as a concept is strong, but if you fix the bug that's boosting the rest of the builds with Viscous Shield, it wouldn't be an overpowered build. And importantly, it's just a really fun build concept to actually play. So I hope that whatever they do to this build doesn't just remove it from the game or remove it from being strong. That's about it for today, everyone. A roundup of what's been going on the last few days in the world of Diablo 4, how we went into the weekend, the results of some recent changes, and the sort of expectations of what will be hitting the game over the next week or so. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on. a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage is goodbye.
I guess I gotta get at least one Asmongold video for Diablo 4 in here.
It's coming out today. We're gonna play it tomorrow. They did a review of the new expansion of Diablo 4. 7 out of 10.
And with every step she takes, I grow stronger.
Diablo 4 was one of my favorite games last year, so I've had high hopes for its first expansion, Vessel of Hatred. Fortunately, this action-packed crusade through the muck and mire of Nahantu's forests and swamps is exactly what the Plague Doctor ordered, even if there isn't as much meat on the bones as I'd hoped. In fact, the truncated campaign, unfinished story, and modest amount of endgame content make this expansion feel more like a prologue in some ways, but the quality
Wait, so is it bad?
life improvements, changes to the meta, debut raid activity, and fantastic new character class are all so dang good that I'm happy to continue grinding XP and claiming shiny loot for several hundred more hours.
Okay, that's good.
Vessel of Hatred picks up right at the maddening cliffhanger of the base campaign, so spoiler warning for that if you haven't seen it.
It was
The Daughter
decent.
of Hatred is dead, and a young adventurer has spirited away a soulstone that contains one of heaven's most wanted demons,
Mephisto. Ooh.
Just begun.
He's
Throughout
bad.
this roughly 6-hour story, you'll watch the dominoes fall as the manifestation of pure evil inches ever closer to what seems like an inevitable resurrection. But things wrap up
There he
here
is.
well before reaching any kind of climax, leaving us with yet another cliffhanger.
Oh, really? Come on.
War with me will only make her suffering worse.
That makes the campaign the weakest part of the expansion. And
Ooh.
although the lore characters and few substantial plot developments we do get are all extremely compelling, there are simply too few of them, with precious little payoff to boot.
A wasteful outcome for both of us.
Thankfully, the
I
stuff
feel like the campaign in Diablo 4 wasn't really great. It was okay, but I don't think that there was like, I didn't realize how kind of meh it was until I watched the Diablo 2 cinematics again. And then like, I'm like, oh wow. Oh wow, like, it was, yeah.
actually doing during and beyond those scraps of story are as exhilarating as Diablo 4 has ever been. Just about everything, from the changes to leveling and the loot system to the added dungeons and side quests, is beyond fantastic. Rune Words, a returning feature that lets you put special enchantments on your equipment, adds yet another layer to build crafting that I adore. And
That's
smashing
cool.
through the Karast Undercity, a time attack dungeon that's infinitely replayable and great for farming endgame loot, easily devoured my evenings.
Okay, cool.
Not every task hits the mark, like the seasonal Realm Walker activity that has you slowly follow around this big dumb monster.
And he's got his grade out so it doesn't take damage. Anytime that there's like a world event or something like this where the monster doesn't take damage for like a period of time just to extend the time frame, it's always so fucking annoying. I hate that. I'm okay if it's like that for the first 20 seconds or so. That way, like, everybody's able to get a tag, kind of like Lost Ark does this. That way, everybody gets a chance to actually hit the boss, etc. And there isn't one guy that just one-shots it. But other than that, so annoying.
And slashing through the compelling Nahantu region of Sanctuary that's been stapled onto the southern part of the map is rarely dull.
Yeah,
I
visually it looks
especially
decent.
enjoy the changes to the leveling system, which now caps out at 60 instead of 100.
That's
then
smart.
gives you 300 levels of over-leveling.
Yeah, I
through
feel like they made leveling so fast that 100 levels felt like you were getting a level like every 5 or 10 minutes. It was just too much.
in insanely complex Paragon perk trees. The result of this shortened climb is that you get into the endgame much sooner,
Yeah, of
which
course.
will be very nice when making new characters each season. You get to spend more time engaging with endgame build crafting.
I'm not making characters every season anymore.
Oh wow,
Not for
so they're
Diablo.
doing all this again.
I never
Holy
even
shit.
fussed with seasons in Diablo
Oh my
3. And Diablo 2, when I
It's
first
because
started,
Diablo
my
3
internet was even worse than it is today, if you can imagine that. So, I played 2 seasons of Diablo 4. That's enough. I'm doing everything on the Eternal Realm now. I don't give a shit about battle passes or whatever the fuck else they got.
The only thing I didn't like about, so I don't like games that have infinite leveling progression. Like, I like the idea of infinite gear progression, kind of, like with, like PoE or something like that, or pseudo-infinite. But, like, whenever you just have to keep leveling, like the way that they added Paragon levels that were uncapped, I didn't like that.
To dramatically improve my long-term commitment to fighting off the hordes of hell.
Suffering
Okay, that should suffice. These are going to end up obfuscated anyway once I can actually get to adding the sleeves.
Yeah, they had those.
NPC heroes to join you on.
So they basically just made it Diablo 3. I feel like all this is in Diablo 3. Yeah.
Your adventures.
I will not let you down.
This
That's
allows
crazy.
solo players to even the odds a bit with co-op groups by having a computer-controlled friend or two tag along for your dungeon delve.
That's cool.
That includes Subo, this long-range bounty hunter who provides backup with his bow, and Aldkin, this demon child who uses her powers to send your foes to the Shadow Realm.
Ooh.
Not only do these faithful companions each have their own introductory quests where you learn about their history, but the longer you spend time with them, the more XP they'll gain to unlock new abilities and other rewards.
That's pretty standard.
You'll be there too?
But the most substantial new thing to dive into is the delightfully customizable class, the Spiritborn. After nearly all of my time in the expansion as this class, it's
I think I'm just gonna play this class because the new season comes out with the expansion, right? Like it's not like it comes out later on and like you're in this weird limbo. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm just gonna play the new class.
become one of my favorites.
Jungle Monk? Yeah, exactly.
Guardians of the Unformed Lands.
This tribalistic magical warrior relies on their connection with guardian spirits, ghostly animals who imbue them with godlike power, all of which have their own memorable, unique style and set of strengths and weaknesses.
We're gonna do that centipede, man. That's just gonna be so fucking
The
badass.
gorilla spirit is all about making you an invulnerable tank, then punishing your enemies for daring to attack you with thorns, while the wonderfully offensive jaguar will turn you into a lightning-fast, melee-swinging DPS machine.
Well, maybe I should
who
do
is
that.
quite squishy.
That sounds pretty cool.
The eagle is all about mobility and allows you to teleport around the map and make yourself incredibly hard to hit, while my personal favorite, the centipede, lets you cover large areas in poison and make yourself nigh invulnerable with life-stealing abilities.
I feel like that one's just obviously the best. It's obviously the best one. Especially with like how many events in Diablo 4 are the equivalent of stand here and kill the mobs that are spawning on top of you. So if you can drop them, it's like the corpse explosion, secondary thing where it leaves the pool of miasma. Like, I mean, yeah, this is 100%. Wrong, it's the worst late game.
Although
What?
you're best off
No.
focusing on one or two spirits, you can mix and match any combination
No.
of the abilities each of the Phantom Beasts offers. So instead of having
Stupid.
a specific set of things your class excels at, like berserking and bleed
Yeah.
damage with the Barbarian, or crowd control and AoE damage with the Sorcerer, you have a whole lot more options with the Spiritborn. This modularity is especially great when one build isn't working out for you, because instead of switching to a different character, you can just respec your skills, swap out a few pieces of equipment, and instantly transform
Fucking
from a
Flicker
cautious
Strike.
tank
Oh,
into
God.
a belligerent blast cannon. Playing as the old classes
That does look pretty good.
still has plenty of advantages, like the fact that you can get way deeper into the weeds with those more focused playstyles. But
Yeah.
for those who want a bit more freedom to change their minds and try different approaches, the Spiritborn is an absolute godsend.
Seems
One of
decent.
the biggest highlights of Vessel of Hatred is the new endgame co-op activity called the Dark Citadel.
What the
This
fuck?
challenging gauntlet requires you and 3 friends to best devilish bosses while
Wait, they have raids?
completing raid-like puzzles in 3 different rooms of the Deadly Fortress.
I'm sorry, guys. But this does look like Vaultin from Wish.
Fighting off countless high-level enemies
I hope
along
it's
the
good.
way.
We'll see what happens. This is a really
the
cool
first
idea.
activity of its kind for the series, and while it definitely has all the signs of being an early attempt, is easily the best endgame activity Diablo has ever had.
I'm
It
actually
makes
kind of
Nightmare
surprised that
Dungeons
they're doing
and
this.
Uber Lilith boss fight from the base game feel underwhelming by comparison. Dividing our groups between 2 realities and coordinating a way to take down a boss's immunity shield was some of the most fun I've had in Diablo
That's
4,
Argus,
and
isn't it?
reveling in the high-end
Yeah.
loot made me want to run it all again.
I wonder if any of the mechanics in this are going to be something that wasn't in Lost Ark. I'm actually really curious. To be fair, Lost Ark was really
There's
good.
plenty of room for improvement, though, as all the raid mechanics are so straightforward that our group was able to push through to the end with minimal coordination and no more than a few failed attempts at each wing.
See, that's one of the things that, like, to me, I don't really like that. So I feel like when you have, like, group content, if you have, like, random matchmaking group content, you can't make it too hard. And if you make the group content and make it really easy, then why are you even playing with other people in the first place? It's like this really weird, like, paradox that I think the game has, where it's like LFR is like this in WoW, where, like, why are you even playing with other people if every single time that, like, it's just like a guaranteed success rate? You might as well just make it a solo experience. Like, I was thinking this would actually be challenging, because if it's not challenging at all, and it's just like you go in there and it's basically like another world boss, like, it's like a waste of time, right? It just feels like a waste of time. How is it a paradox when Vaultin exists? Because the way that people usually play Lost Ark is different than the way that they play Diablo 4. And also, like, the way that, like, the entire, like, Lost Ark is an
Is that
MMO,
notification
and
from
it's
me
designed, and the
or
player base has a totally
somebody
different perspective on, like, how they're going to
else?
approach, like, problems like this.
I guess that was
So
something
it's like if you have
on
random, like,
my
nobody's really doing random
end,
matchmaking in Lost Ark, right? It's very uncommon.
pop.
Most people are making pre-made groups.
Still, it's an extremely impressive first draft that I'm eager to see Blizzard build upon in future expansions. And
That's
it's already,
fair,
without
yeah.
question, the most fun
True.
activity to be found in an already excellent action RPG. With
Yeah, I
such
hope
an
this will be fun.
exemplary co-op activity to delve into, it's very nice to see Vessel of Hatred finally bring matchmaking functionality to Diablo
Thank
with
God.
Party Finder, which
Holy
allows you
shit.
to easily find a group of fellow wanderers to smash through demons with. Like you'd expect, you're able to post or search for groups that are playing on specific world tiers, tackling certain
Okay,
activities,
I
or
might
talking
look
to
at
party
that
chat,
later.
and
Yeah,
all that
but
bog
for
standard
now-
goodness. For folks like me who tend to run around Sanctuary solo unless given an activity that
We're
really
already
requires co-op, this is a
occupied.
really neat feature that probably should have been available long ago, but which comes at a
True.
perfect time since Dark Citadel makes partying up more of a necessity.
Yeah.
That all said, a year and a half into its lifespan, it's a bit surprising that Vessel of Hatred is the most unstable version of Diablo 4 so far.
What does it mean
It's
by
never
that?
so bad it made me want to rage quit, but with multiple crashes, quests that wouldn't complete, important NPCs multiple.
Oh, that's just, I mean, listen, every time a AAA game comes out, I expect it to be garbage when it releases. I'm sorry, I do. I'm like, okay, yeah, of course it's gonna be fucked up.
And hilariously running around the map together, bosses becoming
That's just me.
invulnerable for no reason, and more, it was enough to occasionally throw a wet blanket over an otherwise good time. I'm sure many or all of these issues will be addressed in the weeks and months to come, but my time in Nahantu was a lot less polished than I'd anticipated. That said, not all bugs were too awful, like one where my friends and I were able to do this. That was actually pretty fun.
Damn. That's a lot of experience.
Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred is an awesome expansion that adds an excellent new area to explore, a gloriously modular character class that I can't stop playing, an impressive debut raid activity, and lots more.
I wonder how people are going to perceive the
While just
raid.
about everything it adds to the action is awesome, it definitely doesn't do enough where the somewhat flaccid campaign and story is concerned. And
I can't believe they use the word. That's the word I use all the time.
numerous
Oh boy.
bugs can occasionally drag it down. Thankfully, the changes to the meta, the greatly improved progression system, the resurrection of rune words, and NPC companions are all major wins for Diablo 4, even if it seems like we'll be waiting a while to see where this interlude
Ooh,
expansion
not a 7.
leads. For more, check out our reviews of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Ara History Untold. And for everything else, stick with IGN.
Well, I mean, it seems like it's decent enough to at least try, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, hopefully it's actually going to be fun. He already just complained, what? Well, I think that really, like, what he said is that the campaign sucks, the new class is good. He said basically, if you're a Diablo player, you probably don't care a lot about the campaign. Because that's something you're going to do one time for 6 hours, and then, like, now because of the way that they do the seasons, you're probably never going to do the campaign again. So it's like if the campaign sucks, and he said, like, oh, there's, like, stability issues, everybody knows that's going to get fixed over time, right? Like, realistically, everybody knows that. And so what's really the problem here? Read the first comment. Reviewer failed to distinguish additions to the base game and seasonal content from DLC. DLC is Runeward, Spiritborn, Dark Citadel, Karis Undercity, Mercenaries, and of course the Campaign Act. Everything else is available to anyone who owns the base game and should be considered when deciding whether to buy or not. Planewalkers are additional seasonal activity which will be gone and replaced with something else in 3 months, so that probably should be considered as well. I don't think that you should expect them to be replaced if they're actually good. That's what my perspective is. If these things are actually good and people like them, then you're going to have people continue, they're going to keep doing it. Like they did that, for example, with a lot of the old bosses, and this is the PoE strat, right? Where if something is very well received, you have to go core, and that's effectively what I think is going to happen. I will try this game out and see what happens. I'll probably I want to do the campaign. I'm going to try and do it tomorrow, and I'm going to do the entire thing, hopefully in one day, and then try to level up the character.
I say and then I immediately do it anyway. Eventually I'm going to find out if I tolerate this pattern or not. Okay, what else do I have saved on my playlist? Something LMG.
Gotta get the blood up. Hey, welcome back to welcome back to Riley Week, which is I think it means that I can do whatever I want. Is that can we get confirmation on that? Can I knock anything down I want in the building? I can do, yes, thank you. All right. So the first thing I want to do, because it's my week, is to find out what everyone's working on, especially here in labs, because I haven't been here apparently in some time. Everything's changed. The last time I was here, Jonathan Horst and Bell work in here, and now they're not even in there. Where did they go? Old Hartford? Sean, as in Sean? How long have you been in here? Can I talk to you? First of all, are you busy?
Yeah, I am, but yeah, let's talk.
How do you like your new place compared to your old desk?
It's quite nice. There's not a bathroom right next to me. I have, I got a workbench now. I got a normal desk. It's kind of nice, yeah.
What are you working on that you were so busy that you told Sammy that you couldn't talk to me, and then you saw me, and then you changed your mind?
So I was lying a little bit. I just didn't really feel like being in a video today. Sorry.
Well, now I feel bad. I'm sorry. We'll leave immediately.
No. If this is for a Flip Lane Riley week, then absolutely. Let's
go.
Let's go.
This is bad. We need to get out of here, Sammy. Start the countdown timer. You have 30 seconds. Tell me what you're working on.
Right now, I'm working on a couple things. So this is for the server room downstairs at Smash Champs, which is full of networking gear, and there's like no airflow at all. And they have this little vent, but it's not like louvered properly. It's louvered with like L's.
I don't know what that word is.
So it's got like slats.
Slats. It's got Adobe slats.
Adobe slats, yeah.
For my girls.
Yeah. Slats.
That's a song reference.
Everybody slats.
I thought that like it would be great to ask you what you're working on because you're always working on a million things, but it turns out that it's It's opening Pandora's box.
Yeah. I'm working on another thing.
Oh, look at this, Sammy.
So Smash Champs has got this thing where you get a wristband and then you scan it and then you're allowed in the building. But there was no way to like mount them nicely, so I've designed this like little reader thing, which will like hold the scanner kind of on the desk like that, which would be kind of nice.
Is that 3D printed?
They're 3D printing right now. Actually, they're in logistics. If you want to see this in the physical.
Oh, like they're like churning them out?
They're like one is actually printing right now, the prototype one.
Wow.
And then they put the squishy walls in, and then the door readers in the middle kind of are just dangling by the wire right now. So I've had to print a little spacer for them, and that's also printing currently. So yeah, trying to get them done before end of day so I can go back to Smash Champs and try them. I only designed them this morning, so it's like one day. All right, here we go. One day print and test.
Aren't you an audio engineer?
I was, yeah. Technically, I still am.
And now you're a badminton facility.
Well, I've been here for
manager.
3 years, and every single year I've been here, I've built a building. So I did the original lab, I did this one, and I'm doing Smash Champs, and the next year there might be other ones.
What's next? Space?
I'm not allowed to say.
Work on the ISS?
Confidential.
Get stuck up there after you take a ride up on Starlighter?
That sounds nice. I could use less bone mass.
Okay, I'm confused by this because this used to be this used to be your office, Sammy. You can talk, you know. And now I don't even. There's no people in here. None of this was here the last time I was in this building, or maybe I just didn't come look. And that's the door we don't open. Just kidding. Kitchen. Okay. Should we go? I'm gonna be so loud. I'm gonna be so disruptive. Stealth mode.
This is why you're not replying to my message.
What messages?
I said, when do you want me to host Game Link?
Message Jacob.
He's off on a hair appointment.
What are you talking about? He's still here. He said he's here till 3:15. It might be the case that you go host and then I will heckle you.
I feel like I have him now.
Yeah. What kind of a desktop background is that, first of all, James? What the hell? Why do you need that big? Like, that's not natural. I mean, it does present the coast very nice. It fits it perfectly.
That could be Spain. I don't know.
Oh, you don't? I was going to say, I don't know where Amalfi is.
That's
Oh, yeah, I forgot. See, there it is. It happened.
That's Italy, big boy.
It's real? He just holds it? No, I hold it. I mic'd already.
Oh, you hold it.
Sammy, what do you think?
This is the only part of me.
What are you working on? Stop.
I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
I'm supposed to be asking people what they work on. Really, I can ask people whatever I want. No one's going to stop me. It's Riley week. It's my week.
My hands are so dry.
You can't even, no, you can't tell us what you're working on. Right now, you're working on trying to get a hold of me.
Sometimes I'm working on the craziest series ideas for like what's going to be the next Scrapyard Wars, but not even specifically Scrapyard Wars, but I mean the next series that's awesome as Scrapyard Wars that we don't even know about yet.
Don't tell me generally. I want to know what are you doing right now? What are you working on currently?
Oh, I'm solving process issues. Now, do we do this thing in the right order, or does that cause us problems that can be
Oh,
avoided?
yeah.
I'm reading tech wiki scripts. I'm about to go host Game Link.
Pleasure working with you. What is
This is a...
Alex, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It's me, Riley.
Can they hear me at all?
Maybe.
Barely.
You got to talk loud.
You could just come over here.
Well, welcome to Riley week. How does it feel?
Absolutely fantastic. Riley is one of my favorite characters in the LMG universe, and it's a pleasure to see that you have your own week.
Alex, please. Enough.
I can't necessarily talk about any of the stuff that I'm working on right now. Someone can figure it out based off of what's on my screen.
You're building a tire from scratch.
No.
I must say, I miss you, Alex. We used to carpool together, and then you moved away.
Yep. Now I only have about a 10-minute commute to work, and it is wonderful. I don't have to hear about all of the Star Wars stuff. I don't
Yes,
know how.
but you will, because guess what the next Riley week video is? It's a 20-minute Star Wars rant.
That is the least shocking thing I've ever heard in my life. This is a project that I'm working on that I can actually tell people about.
Oh, yeah, that'd be
We
good.
bought a whole bunch of motherboards that are broken. And it turns out they're basically all broken by just having bent pins, so I think it might actually be super easy.
Oh.
And they're all super freaking cheap. Like this thing was like $30. It's like a $200 board.
And then are we going to give the motherboards to the charity?
I should have done this pattern
No
a
worries,
different
keep it.
way.
You'd be like, wow,
I
it's
like how it's
another
coming
board.
out.
What kind of
But
charity?
I have trouble thinking
I make,
about it, so
I make this so hard on myself. Why do I do this?
it's ridiculously difficult at the moment.
Ben Pins, how many motherboards are we dealing with?
7.
That could make a difference.
Okay, if you have a charity that wants maybe working motherboards, hit us up.
Wow, that might have been the best clip I've ever seen. But that's a lie because there's even better ones. If you go to lmg.gg/Riley24, you can see all the whole videos to do that.
I'm so glad this is going to be obfuscated under partial sleeves and shadowing, because the pattern's already hurting my brain. I probably broke the pattern more times than I realized at this stage. Do I scrap it and start over again? There's a temptation. Because I've clearly confused myself. I like the sizing, I like the distribution. I just got myself confused on color configuring. Down, left, up, right, down, left, up, right. Left, up, right, down, left. Left, up, right, down. Right, down, left, up, right, down, left, up. Left, up, right, down, left, up, right, down. Left, right, right, left, right, left.
I was at Creator Summit this week. Pretty cool. Definitely one of the highlights of my career being able to attend this kind of event. Sorry?
Nothing. You're good.
Definitely one of the highlights of my career being able to attend events like this. I got to hang out with Michelle Kari quite a bit this time around. I was surprised to see Matt Pat there. The rumors of his retirement have been greatly exaggerated. But Matt Pat was there, which was really great to be able to connect with him and stuff. Shoot, now that I've started listing people, it's going to be horrible when like I forget someone that I hung out with for a bit, but definitely hung out with Hacksmith for a while. It was awesome to see him.
Nice.
Oh man, now I'm gonna feel so bad.
And many other great and fantastic people.
Oh, dude, I finally actually met Carl Jacobs, the guy that we built the $100,000 PC for. I never met him, and it turned out that we were on the same floor in the hotel, and I like didn't recognize him because I don't watch YouTube. It's always super awkward for me at these events because everyone else kind of seems to know who everyone else is because it's a top creator summit, and so these are a lot of the top creators on the platform, and I don't really watch YouTube. We played a game late last night, like 2 in the morning. We were all just like sitting around a picnic table outside, and everyone like brought up their YouTube account and showed how many of the other people at the table they were subscribed to. Michelle was literally subscribed to everyone else around the table. And I pull up mine, and the LTT account, the main LTT account, is subscribed to one creator. Luke, do you have any guesses as to who it is?
Okay, can I ask a question first?
If it was one creator, yeah, you can, tell you what, you can ask 3 questions because you're not going to get it.
Is it one of our own channels?
No.
Is it a channel that we were previously closely affiliated with?
Closely affiliated? I would say no.
Okay, it's not NCX.
Oh, that's where you were going. No,
yeah.
that was a good guess, though. That was a really good guess. No.
Honestly, if it's not them, I have a
one more
hard time.
question.
So we're not closely affiliated.
No.
It's not our own thing.
No. I think you could have gotten the answers to both of those with just the one.
I was fishing. I was fishing too hard. Yeah.
Oh, dude, you wasted one.
Have we ever worked with them or collabed with them or anything like that?
Yes. So you've at least managed to narrow it down a little bit.
Is it like Paul?
Oh, good guess, but no.
Okay.
The answer is Ludwig. And the reason for it, he wasn't
That's so recent. I expected it to be like really old. Okay.
No, the reason for it is that when I was sitting next to him, literally next to him in a chair, he like guilted me a little bit. That was part of it. I think that happened off camera. But then when I was sitting next to him in the chair doing the bro versus bro, he was getting the stream set up, and I wanted to interact with chat, and I couldn't because he has like a 5-minute or a 10-minute subscriber gate on interacting in his live chat. So I subscribed to him, and then I just like never remembered to unsubscribe or care, and I never looked at it. So that was it. That was the one I was subscribed to. Hold on, my personal is even worse.
Okay.
So after that, because they asked about like what about first everyone was talking about main, right? And for pretty much everyone else, on main would be the channel they upload to, right? Because they don't have like the content management system that gives multiple people access to their uploading tools and their channel management tools and stuff. Like we have like 8 active channels right now or something like that, and we have multiple people that need access to all of them. So we have kind of a different access system to our channels. So my my main channel is not at Linus Tech Tips. It's just at like my Gmail account. So get this, okay? Once again, I was not subscribed to anybody who was at the table. You ready?
Sure.
Linus Tech Tips. Okay, that makes sense. Probably did that at some point. Dave and Ava, nursery rhymes and maybe something. So my kids probably mashed that. In fact, it was probably my son, like 10 years ago, when I didn't want to get up in the morning, and I was like, take my phone. Lulu Kids, nursery rhymes and children, whatever. Super simple songs, kid songs. So those are all probably similar stories. I am subscribed with the bell rung to Apple Canada for some reason. No idea why. I'm subscribed to Last Week Tonight. Don't remember when I did that. Love John Oliver, but I don't remember subscribing to that. I don't think I've ever seen a notification for it. And then the last 2, you're gonna laugh. One of them is Killian Experience. It's a totally random.
I know that reference though. I know why. Yeah.
And then the last one is the Mome Boys.
The what? The Mome Boys?
Remember that rap song that has Tekken on my tip?
Oh yeah.
So that is the list of channels I'm subscribed. I don't know if you could come up with a more random list of channels if you just started like inputting letters and numbers with your face by mashing your face against your keyboard. YouTube.com/mash your face against your keyboard and then just pressing enter. Like completely unrelated to each other channels. So I lost the game. I lost that game, which is fine, I guess. I forget where I was going with this, but anyway, yeah. So finally got a chance to meet Carl Jacobs. Seems like a super nice guy. For someone so young, he is surprisingly cultured when it comes to gaming. My brother just played Chrono Trigger in the last year and was like, dude, this is a masterpiece. This is like one of the greatest games of all time. And I'm just like, man. And you know what? This is crazy. This is crazy. His favorite Final Fantasy, 9. And I was like, yeah, 7's overrated. He's like, I know, dude. All my controversial takes, I now feel validated about. So I was pretty excited about that. Anyway, yeah, it was a great show. Had a really good time. And right, I remember what I'm supposed to be talking about right now. Oh wait, hold on. Okay, last person that I actually got to hang out with a fair bit. And this is great. Sorry. I promise I will stop doing story time in a little bit here. Stephen He. You know Stephen He, emotional damage guy?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, dude. He's one of those YouTubers that is exactly the same in person, and yet somehow so different, like more unhinged and like random, if that makes sense. Like he's exactly the same guy, but just like I'm glad that he doesn't just upload absolutely everything he says, because it's like, whoa, okay, cool. Yep. That's a good thing. Love Steven. I showed him the pictures of the badminton center, and he's like, dude, back in China, when I was like young, I played like semi-professionally. So we start like
Yeah, I'm
spitballing.
out. Yeah.
YouTuber badminton tournament?
Yeah.
Like, dude, could we make this a thing?
Probably. I'm sure. I mean, Ludwig just did YouTuber Olympics. If
Right.
you can do like 15 different sports or whatever, I'm sure you can do one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm at least 1/15 as good as Ludwig, right? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure you can do it. You have the camera set up.
Dude, I'd be so excited to do it. Java Juice says nerd sports but competent. Yeah, so on that note, we actually we talked about the channel Badminton Insight a little while ago.
Yeah.
Greg and Jenny reached out, hearing about it on the stream, or hearing that we were talking about them on the stream, and nothing's for sure, but probably sometime, let's give ourselves some breathing room. Sometime in the next 6 to 9 months.
We'll say New Year.
And my intention, I have pitched this internally. I have asked the business team to try to sell a sponsorship for this. They said they think they can do it. I would like to resurrect nerd sports. So Greg and Jenny, they're pro players, but they also do YouTube as a side hustle, and I pitched them the idea. So for their channel, they want to do a tour of the center, and they pitched a concept that I think is brilliant. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to spoil it because I want them to tell you guys what it is, but basically it will involve me filming with them probably for like an entire day, and it's going to be an absolute blast, and that's going to go on their channel. And then I told them for our channel, I want to bring back nerd sports. I told them about the concept. I linked them to the hockey one, and I was like, so here's the idea. You're going to play against like regular Joes on our team, and we're going to come up with some creative, fun handicaps in order to try to level the playing field. Not only were they down, but they started pitching back to me like really funny handicaps.
Nice.
Luke, would you want to? Do you think you could be prepped? Could your shoulder be rehabbed enough to be in this?
I've started a new routine that's been going really well. I'll make it work.
Go.
I would love to do that. Nerd sports was so much fun. I can't even like explain.
The return of the keyboard warriors. Are we doing this?
Yeah, of course. I've always been down.
Are we doing this?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm so excited. So just, it's going to come on Channel Super Fun. That doesn't mean Channel Super Fun is coming back. Yeah. That just means
it's allowed to have one upload every like 4 years.
That just means that Greg and Jenny are coming out here. They're flying an awful long way to be here. I want to make sure that everybody is maximizing the value of this trip, and I didn't think that there was anything LTT that made a ton of sense with them. Channel Super Fun Nerd Sports, on the other hand, though, we've got professional players in our house. Well, how could we not do this? So, dude, I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked. The thing is, though, okay, so let's have a production meeting here, because I don't think that I should play for the Keyboard Warriors.
I don't think you can, unfortunately.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think I'm too good? Because let me tell you this. Hold on. Let me tell you this first. To you, I'm probably some kind of badminton god.
Yeah.
To them, I'm a badminton ant. I am a little thing that they squish under their thumb, and then actually, no, they don't even bother. They don't even bother to squish me under their thumb. It's not even worth their effort. And
if the gap is that big, then it's probably okay. Actually, what I was going to say though, if the gap isn't that big, I think you commentating it. You know how we used to have commentators?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, well now I want that role.
You commentating it, I think, would be amazing. If the gap is that big though, you could play. But my immediate reaction was that you would just commentate.
Okay, what about this?
Which
What
would
about
be
this for an
pretty
idea? What if I commentate the Keyboard Warriors playing against Greg and Jenny, and then at the end,
you try to step in.
We take their fully handicapped level, so whatever, maybe they're wearing eye patches by this point, and we've got 5-pound weights on their shoes, like whatever it is that we've done to them to make it so that the game is somewhat even, right?
Yeah.
We put like oh man, this would be great. So you know how much of the badminton stroke is in the wrist, right? Right. So we put like wrist guards, like rollerblading, skateboarding, like wrist guards on their hands, so they can only swing their arms or something like. Whatever it is we end up having to do to make them barely able to compete head-to-head against normies.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I walk on, and we see how many of them I can remove before they start to kick my butt.
That's cool. I like that.
So we go all the way one way, and then basically it's like a battle for me to try to get as many of them off as I can. Yeah, I think that would be super cool.
Do you have to have a buddy though? Because it's still duos, right?
That's interesting. So could I draft the best player from the Keyboard Warriors maybe? So because I'm commentating, I'm watching, or should I bring in like one of my buds? Like I'll bring in like my mixed doubles partner.
Or what's his name that you just met at the event? Emotional damage guy.
Oh, like Steven?
Yeah.
Okay, that's an idea.
So it goes from keyboard warriors to like YouTuber people.
Interesting. Okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind.
We can cook.
But
we can make it good.
It might be a lot to align those trips.
LMG community and full plane chat says bring in Jake Juan.
Yeah, we could bring in the facility manager for the badminton courts. Okay, all right. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna see.
Either way, it's gonna be sick.
Dude, I'm so excited. Nerd Sports coming back. You know what's funny is I mentioned this well in front of Yvonne. I hadn't actually talked to her about it, but I was talking to Steven about the idea, and Yvonne was there, and she was like, "Yeah, Nerd Sports was fun. I think it'd be fun to do Nerd Sports again." So you remember when we had like maybe 4% of Yvonne's attention helping with the producer side of Nerd Sports? Like literally, no offense to anyone else who was on our team and anyone else who's on our team now. And when I say team, I don't mean the Keyboard Warriors, like our Nerd Sports team. I mean our team, like Linus Media Group team. No offense to everyone else, but for how little time and attention Yvonne put into it, I don't think anyone else could have gotten us the kinds of matchups that she did.
We got some pretty cool teams.
That was crazy. That was actually nuts. If she was like full-time producer of Nerd Sports, I think not only could we bring it back, but it could be awesome. Like 10 million views an episode, awesome.
I'd be 1,000% down. Nerd Sports was one of like the coolest things. I used to share them with so many people too because they're like, I don't know. It's just interesting content. It plays into the whole concept of like I wish we could see like just average people compared to the Olympians at the Olympics. It's that, but you're really pitting them against each other and really showing the gap, like everything that you need to do to like tear someone down to the level of an average person. Because
well, you know that was a big part of the original idea behind it, right? Like it got kind of lost in the way that we were a really small company and there were a lot of production challenges, but like so it kind of got lost in
everything. I'm not gonna lay the blame on any one person's feet because A, that's not cool, and B, it doesn't lie on any one person's feet. But what got kind of lost was that it was supposed to be about highlighting not professional top tier level athletes, but the next down or the next down. You know, the people who were trying to go pro, and basically really like putting in your face so that you cannot escape this how different these guys are from the person sitting on their couch going, oh, I could have caught that. You know, like actually standing on the court next to the Trinity Spartans. Do you remember that? You're a reasonable freaking sized dude. But did you not feel intimidated by those women?
Yeah, they dunked us pretty hard. And
because I did.
There was, I mean, we definitely fielded some players on the keyboard warriors that were not athletic. But despite being keyboard warriors, we've always had a decent amount of people on the team that are fairly naturally athletic, and we would just still get completely destroyed in every single sport. It was like never close.
Completely.
Oh man.
Yeah. Stephen Chu, community manager, says, how I feel when I see a kicker miss an extra point in the NFL. Yeah, exactly. But like, if you literally stood on that field and tried to make even a below average kick, you'd go up there, you'd kick it, and it'd be like, bloop, because you are not a world class athlete.
While there's like some dude running at you that can tackle you with the force of like an F-150. It's just like slightly nerve wracking.
Yeah, exactly. And then, obviously the slight twist compared to Joes versus pros or regular people at the Olympics or other people who have done this concept before and since is the leveling of the playing field.
Yeah, the nerfs.
Illustrating just how ridiculous it has to be. I mean, by the time we were competitive with that hockey team, dude, I was telling the story at Creator Summit. They had their skates in little hula hoops, so and they had to keep the hula hoops on their skates, so they couldn't lift them up. They were holding pineapples in one hand. They had to link arms with the player next to them, so there were effectively only 3 of them on the ice compared to our 6, and they had to use little plastic toy sticks. And it was still really close when we called next point wins. With 5 skaters plus a goalie that's not tethered to someone, full-size sticks.
Saying skaters is maybe a little much.
Yeah, that's a little generous.
5 people that happen to be on ice. Yeah, I had scars from that for years, and now you can't normally see them. But when I get really cold, you can still see the lines from where the laces were.
Oh no. Oh man.
That was rough.
Yeah. Blendetto says if I were out on the ice instead of Connor McDavid, the Oilers would have won the Stanley Cup. Exactly. The thing is, you're memeing obviously, right? But so many people.
Some people aren't. Yeah.
Seem to actually think that when I was in my prime, I could have. No, you couldn't have, man. No, you couldn't have. These guys are otherworldly talented. So anyway, yeah, Nerd Sports. I'm super excited, and I think there's a document I'm supposed to be reading from to talk about stuff.
Going back to the Diablo 4 stuff. I've got more saved here, surely. Yeah.
Blizzard just showcased all of the new Diablo 4 content coming with the expansion. We got gameplay of the new raids, which is like the Dark Citadel. We have the new seasonal mechanic has been announced, showcased, and we got gameplay of that as well. We also have a new mechanic, Crossed Undercity, which is explained with like tributes, allow you to target rewards, etc. So let's break it all down. First bit of a reminder, here's the times for the launches. It's October 7th if you are on the western side. So we're talking 4 p.m. Pacific, October 7th for the launch of the game. The new seasonal mechanic is called the Realm Walker, which is basically this portal that can summon a giant dude starts walking around. He pops out of the ground, here's the big boy, he's going to summon minions as you follow him around. He's invulnerable for a while, then you kill him. He drops a portal that you go in which you select which reward you actually want to get out of this portal. Then you basically blast through an instance and get your reward that you selected at the end. Here's an example of the rewards that you're going to get. These are basically stackable with experience potions, so you can get more multiplicative experience gains here as well. And these are basically ramp-up drops you get for monsters. So gold, equipment, herbs, and crafting materials. And these two give you gem fragments and runes. And then this one, the Opal of Torment, is going to be interesting. Gives you boss summoning items and Inferno compasses. Sure, that will be a favorite. There was a funny meme segment of Blizzard when they showcased this is basically what the loop looks like. The dude comes out of the ground, you go in the portal, you kill a bunch of mobs, you get your rewards, you do it over again. They also announced the Undercity, which, as they explained, is an intense multi-floor time attack dungeon. This allows you also to target rewards through things called tributes that you use when you open up this area. And these tributes will allow you to apply modifiers where your legendary armor, for instance, will always possess at least 1 skill rank affix. Your legendary amulets will always have at least 1 passive rank. These are examples of the types of things that you can use to specifically target what type of loot you're trying to get. They mentioned during the dev update livestream that they're trying to apply agency to the player, basically let the player deterministic be able to select what they actually want to accomplish a little bit more than previously. So it basically looks like this. You have these tributes, you put in these tributes here, and then you can further customize your rewards depending upon what you're looking for. At that point, you will be inside a time attack mode. Now, as you kill monsters, you're gaining a time bonus. You can continue to go. You can see there's the timer up there in the top right. There's different tiers, 1, 2, 3, 4. So depending upon how good you're doing, you'll get reward upgrades. As long as you just clear the first tier, you're guaranteed at least to get your reward. Then you will fight this boss at the end, or there will be different bosses depending upon basically which of these undercities you're doing. And what's cool about these is these actually have unique mechanics. It's new bosses with unique mechanics. So for instance, he's got a red ring around him, so he's only immune to the red damage. So he needs to stay on the red. He stayed in the green there and took damage. Get to the red. He was in the green again, took damage again. So that's sort of how that works. This is the only undercity they showed during the segment, but I'm sure there's more of these. And they showed examples of tributes, so you can get everything from rewards for guaranteed runes all the way up to uniques and an increased chance for mythic uniques, so you can really target what you're looking for. There's also modifiers that only the solo player gets the reward, or there's ones they stated personally that
will allow you to do a party as well. So this is not just solo content. They also showed this new kind of troll goblin. They call it the Portal Prankster. The Portal Prankster will go in and out of a bunch of different portals, basically making it difficult to target him since you're in the time attack. Will give you bonus rewards at the end of the run. Now we get to one of the better parts, what my personal favorite of this update is, which is the in-game raids, the Dark Citadel. It has multiple wings. In fact, here's the image that they show. There's 3 different wings to this. There's the Enclave of Strife, there's the Labyrinth of Souls, and you have your final one, the Dominion of Zagro. Now, they stated very clearly, this is sort of the in-game pushing content, but this is also not solo player. You have to do this in a minimum of 2 people. They actually showed footage of why. You have one player that goes to like the other side here and is fighting to complete whatever objectives happening there, and you have another player staying on the other side, and each person kind of has to do their own thing. So this is something where you're going to need, not need communication, but they say communication may help. More importantly, however, it looks like actual boss fights with actual mechanics outside of just tank and spank and try to avoid damage. There's other things you actually have to do, making this more complex than an average boss fight. They even show one portion where you have to like run through a maze here and grab a barrier. Now you're probably thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. There's raids. Well, with raids come good rewards. Are they going to be locking out anything specific only to this? Maybe you're a solo player who doesn't like the idea of playing in a party. So in order to have the strongest character possible, am I going to have to play in a party? The answer is no. They show the weekly rewards here, and these are basically just buffs. So the instances increase all stats for all yourself and nearby players, increased experience, increased healing. Your next core skill heals you. For instance, these are temporary elixir buffs and scrolls. So like drop health potions and restore health, or used to restore all temporary charges, for instance, on an item. But when you might be looking at that and be like, temper charges, okay, well, that does influence my gear. Well, the temper charges scroll is actually going to be given to you too throughout seasonal content. It looks like it's not locked only. They mentioned this on the previous chat. It's not locked only there. So if you see that, you're like, that's actually something useful. It can be used for my gear. You don't have to only get that within the Dark Citadel itself. They also showed armor. So there is armor and mount that you can get. This is for defeating the Dark Citadel in Torment Tier 4, meaning there is locked behind cosmetics that are only for achieving the highest difficulty of the new in-game content. It's cosmetic armor only, however. So there are bragging rights, for instance. Here's an example of it on the Barbarian. There's one on the Necromancer. There are bragging rights, but there's not gear power associated with progression in the Citadel. This is probably a good way to balance this, because if there was power locked behind it, you're going to piss off a lot of solo players. A lot of people play Diablo by themselves, and that's just how they like to play it. However, you have to have some kind of reward, or else what's the purpose of doing it? So the cosmetics are a good middle ground for that. Now, that's not everything. They also kind of reiterated some of the previous information. They went over mercenaries again and discussed there's mercenary skill trees. There's a bartering system that will help you acquire different legendary aspects or boss summoning materials, and each one of these mercenaries have their own role to fill. They also talked about balance updates. For instance, some classes got buffs, some got some things fixed, or it might end up being a nerf. For instance, the Druid, Nature's Fury, got fixed. It was proccing too many times, apparently. So if you're a Druid like me, it looks like 17 damage is back on the menu, boys. They did, however, do some other changes to items. For instance, the non-Ancestro gear, what they did was allow Masterworking now go up to 8, and also you can temper them twice. Previously, this was only applicable on Ancestros. They also made it where the unique item drop chance is tripled for Ancestros. So now you're not getting as many basically dog uniques. You'll be getting much more greater affix Ancestral uniques. Also, there's some changes in difficulty. The TLDR is basically, it's a little bit harder. So Tournament 4, they have a philosophy here where Tournament 1 unlocks the whole game. Once you're just in Tournament, you can do the whole game. There's nothing, I repeat again, there is nothing that is locked behind Tournament 2, 3, and 4. That is aspirational content that becomes more difficult, and your reward for doing it, because it is more difficult, is you will acquire more items in terms of quantity. So you're going to get more of them, more often they'll be higher quality. Basically, you get more drops, and because you're getting more drops and more experience, you're going through your Paragon levels better, and you have better opportunity to acquire more materials. But that's it. If you only get to Tournament 1, you can still play the whole game. Well, I say that, but then Tournament 4, clearing the Dark Citadel, gives you those cosmetics, so keep that in mind. They kind of retooled some of the Paragon board, too. They're saying there's too much power behind Legendary gear, so they basically nerfed the Paragon board, but in exchange made it a little bit easier to fill out the Paragon board to apply things like if you have a rune that needs more decks, well, there's going to be more decks around. They try to make it a little bit easier for you to fulfill the requirements of your glyphs, but also lower the ceiling a bit on the glyphs, because they said the glyphs were just too strong and made your gear feel not as relevant. This is part of the reason what I'm talking about it's going to be just a little bit more difficult. Like your damage is a little bit nerfed. Between that and the time it takes to acquire like the materials, etc., your game time in the game to get to like ultra in game is going to be significantly longer than you're probably used to. There were some buffs to the Inferno Hordes, basically just better rewards, guaranteed unique from the boss kills now, as well as you no longer have to like spam as many times to get through the chest. Also changes to Mythic Unique crafting. So now you can literally make a Mythic Unique. 2 sparks gets you a random one. So just playing through the season journey, killing those, basically just playing the game through Formula 1, you can get yourself a Mythic Unique. Very guaranteed. It's not going to be too hard to do that. However, if you add in a set of runes with those sparks, now you can specifically choose the Mythic Unique you want to get. You can also still gamble 1 Resplendent Spark plus the runes to get one. AKA, you're not going to sit there and just wait for the Mythic Unique drop. You now have a deterministic guaranteed path to acquire a Mythic. At the Blacksmith, you can also generate legendary gear using common materials. You can forge random legendary gear as well. So help you kind of, it's almost like oboe gambling, help you get some of the aspects maybe you're missing. They also touched on rune words. They did some changes. So they buffed some of the ones that they felt like are underperforming, like the Spirit Wolf, the Meteors, the Spiritborn Vortex. Like they actually buffed more than this. These are just some examples that they showed. They're basically shrinking the ceiling and raising the floor. So what do I mean? Well, myself and basically everyone else who came out and made videos when we talked about the PTR changes with the Rune Word edition was that everyone's just going to use the Barbarian Cry plus the Druid Petrify. I mean, why would you not use that? So they actually removed Berserking from the War Cry unless you're a Barbarian, and then the Druid no longer gets, or the Petrify no longer gets the critical strike damage from the Rune version. It goes just back to the normal Druid version. So for that reason, they're basically nerfing the best ones and they're trying to make the more dog ones a little bit better to kind of meet in the middle. Their concept is all of them should at least have some use, case use literally somewhere instead of just being completely worthless. And they also said they just removed some of the ones that they felt were like literally doing nothing. Anyway, that's really about it for the update and everything you need to know from that dev update live stream. It was basically 2 hours plus, so I condensed it down. Hope you have a good one. Subscribe if you want more Diablo 4 related
If Diablo 4 were
content.
tempting me, I would be wanting to watch that dev live stream myself. Unfortunately, I want to play more Diablo 4, but I don't want to play it more than anything else currently on my palette. Because I got a taste for Monster Hunter World now that I'm back in high rank. Getting ready to do some Elder Dragons and start moving to Tempered soon. I want to do more MGR. I'm especially playing that during the US election season coming up early November. And I got something I want to do for October around Halloween time, but I gotta make sure I can get the stars aligned on that first, so... it's gonna be something spooky, if you will. Time will tell. Okay.
Ladies, gentlemen, and Harajim of all ages, the stream just wrapped up for the developer update going into the Vessel of Hatred expansion and Season 6 for Diablo 4, and of course everything relevant for those things. The stream itself was quite hefty and lengthy, and it also went back through a lot of information that we already know about, so today we're here to just wrap up everything of actual note, everything new and important, especially with a focus on the stuff that's actually different from what we were already aware of. Things like the changes made after the PTR that ran last month, and the details for Season 6 itself, which we now understand pretty completely. First things first, there were changes to the progression and itemization system of the game. On the PTR, there was a lot of feedback that the new difficulty tier system was a bit too easy overall. Penitence should be available earlier, and the torment tier should be harder to actually reach and manage within, so there's just actually been a lot more longevity added to the system, and also equivalently, hopefully, more reward for the higher tiers too, as it was a bit underwhelming on the PTR. Results of this then are first that the Penitent tier is now available pretty much just from the start. When you use a fresh character, at level 1 you can go into the game and change it to Penitent if you want to challenge yourself with it. Though they've also rebalanced the difficulty of this tier along with many of the other ones, so we'll have to see how this works out for players while leveling. But it is worth mentioning that the embargo for people with access to the press review build is up in a couple of days for some actual first-hand reports on all of this. But for now, let's just talk about what we know from this stream. The intended changes are to make the difficulty tiers more meaningful, larger gaps between them, and moving the differences in monster intensity to be between Torment tiers rather than through the base 4 difficulty types. Torment 1 difficulty on the PTR is what Penitent difficulty feels like now, and sort of continues the whole way through, where our new Torment 4 difficulty, our top difficulty, is what Pit tier 80 was like on the PTR. So in other words, just a pretty hefty challenge jump across the board, and part of the point of this is that every activity and every piece of gear is accessible in Torment 1 difficulty, so you can build whatever you want to build, play whatever you want to play, as soon as you can defeat a Pit tier 20. Everything past that is just trading difficulty for efficiency, the ability to farm things faster and better. Past that, they also made some changes to the itemization stuff on the PTR as well, and one of the biggest concerns was that legendary items could not have 2 tempers and were capped at 4 to 12 masterworking, which felt really quite weak comparatively speaking and made the sort of mid-game progression feel quite off. They've gone back on this a bit halfway, they've done a bit of a compromise. You can now apply 2 tempers to all legendary items, and it is masterworking capped at 8 out of 12 for non-ancestrals instead of 4. So you still have quite a lot of room for progression once you get your ancestrals, but you also have a lot that you can do even without ancestrals in the sort of mid to late game, rather than having to sort of bank everything and save your materials for when you get ancestral items. As well, the drop chance of ancestral items was really bad on the PTR and will be tripled for live. On top of this, they've rebalanced the main stat skill damage conversion rate, so it isn't quite as hefty as it was on the PTR, and it now matches what it did in Season 5. They've also notably changed the additive and multiplicative damage gains on the Paragon and actual glyphs themselves, as these were oppressively strong in the PTR, especially with legendary glyphs, and it made a lot of the rest of the build creation process much less impactful and powerful. That said, this likely means that our general player power will be lower than what experienced on the PTR, especially with some other things we'll be talking about in a bit, along with the difficulty tiers themselves being made more punishing too. So the difficulty scaling of the game is very different from the PTR, where the general feeling from the player base was that it was too easy. So don't expect everything to be a pushover, because it's not looking like it will be at all from what they've told us here. They've also just added a bunch of nodes closer to the glyph sockets on various Paragon boards to our actual different classes to make the new glyph radius a bit more impactful, as a lot of the glyphs can have a larger radius, which means they need more nodes to be able to affect. They've also reworked a lot of the more conditional damage increases to make them more generally applicable on Paragon, like potion healing being direct healing received now as an example. And they also added a bunch of power to the damage reduction based nodes on the Paragon boards too, to help with the increased difficulty of the higher torment tiers that we now have as well. Past that are the Infernal Hordes changes, and the first part is that Hordes will now be a rarer activity. These are on the PTR at all, so this is changes from Season 5. You won't have infinite compasses anymore like you basically did used to, so you can just run it over and over. The council boss fight at the end will always drop items, specifically including uniques target farmed from this activity specifically. Then the third major change is that rewards are different. The greater equipment chest is 200 Aether and gives you ancestrals. The chest of materials will convert all of your remaining Aether into materials, rather than just spending 20 Aether at a time, and then the chest of gold remains unchanged. No mention of the normal equipment chest here, so that does raise a bit of a question. Then they've just redone the rewards in a fair bit of different places as well. Increased ancestral drop rates in Nightmare Dungeons and Whispers of the Dead, increased experience for Nightmare Dungeon completion, general loot buffs to a lot of the larger loot pinatas, and stronghold completion rewards have dropped a bit too, but they are still worth doing for pure XP, especially from the 50 to 60 range, just not as strong as they were on the PTR. As well as worth mentioning that Paragon glyphs will now be able to drop from the pit at the end, which is great as that is now also the glyph XP and levels. Then we have updates to crafting items, specifically a few different ways to craft with resplendent sparks to get either random or targeted mythic unique items. A way to just get random legendaries in exchange for common salvage materials from the blacksmith, and some jeweler changes as well. Then we come to the big one for a lot of people, which is class updates and changes from the PTR specifically. As usual, we'll be going in order here and mostly just focusing on the highlights, with the full changes being available in the patch notes if you want to check them out yourself. But it's worth mentioning the larger changes happened before the PTR. This is just sort of some changes in result of this. First time we have Barbarian, upheaval damage increase in general, and Furious Upheaval got some reasonable increases as well. Hellhammer, which is the upheaval unique, got some buffs too. Twin Strikes got a buff, Ring of Red Fur damage increased pretty significantly, and the Martial Vigor passive now gives more damage reduction from elites. Then next up is Druid. Nature's Fury has been fixed to no longer trigger off essentially its own bonus casts. Great Staff of the Crone has had crit damage replaced with Storm Strike double hit chance, which is actually quite good, and the damage of Storm Strike bonus from the unique effect itself increased. The retaliation aspect is now juiced up as a multiplier, being much stronger than it was. Then a couple of Paragon fixes, including adding a 50% crit multiplier to the Lust for Carnage Paragon node, and a much better multiplicative boost for the Untamed legendary Paragon node over its old version. Past that we have Necromancer, and Blood and Bone builds were pretty much at the top of the pile on PTR. Necromancer itself wasn't that strong compared to the other classes, it wasn't overpowering, so some changes have been made within Necromancer to try and bring other archetypes back in line and make them stronger compared to Blood and Bone, including buffs for Reap, buffs for the barrier amount of Necrotic Fortitude, buffs to make Kaelin's Edict, also give damage per active minion, which is nice, and then a bunch of changes to make multiple different powers actually scale with your minion damage bonus stats, and a couple of buffs to the Cult Leader Paragon board as well, with the general focus here being to try and make minions feel better in-game. After that is Rogue with some buffs to Encircling Blade and the Blade Dancers aspect as well, some fixes to a bug with Victimize that was making it do way more damage than intended, which is fair enough. It was extremely strong in the PTR, and then there's some fun changes for Rain of Arrows to make it work better with imbuements. Finally, then we have these Sorcerer changes, and honestly, this is more just bug fixes than anything, fixing the Enlightenment interactions with auto-casting skills and things like that, meaning skills that trigger from an aspect or unique effect rather than actually casting it from your bar. Then they changed Incinerate size affix on the Flamescar unique to instead be chance for double damage with Incinerate, which does make that quite a fair bit stronger. Teleport chance to deal damage is now on the Oculus wand as well. well, instead of teleport size, which again does make it stronger. Then the buff duration on the Talrasha ring, the effect itself is actually just longer now, so you don't have to use each element quite as frequently to get the full effect. As we have the changes for rune words from the PTR, and the main feedback from most players was a handful of runes were way too strong and impossible to justify not using. So they've gone through and sort of flipped it all as much as they can. They look back at what the runes do, what they offer, and change the offering costs or offering grants for each one. They also just straight up removed 4 of the runes that they didn't like the functionality of, which honestly is great to hear because I'd rather have less options but all of them be pretty good, rather than more options and some of them just being completely unusable and diluting the pool. Big main changes as well. The Warcry rune no longer gives enhanced Warcry, so it only gives you a base damage increase while active rather than also giving you berserking, which was what made it so strong. So this should be a bit more balanced now. They also nerfed the Petrify rune by moving the crit damage bonus of Petrify to one of its enhancements, so the rune word now only triggers the large radius stun and the resource gain. Again, of course, this was necessary. It's a really big nerf, but it was important to do. These things were just too strong on the PTR, especially for something that was expansion only, so only for people who paid money. It wasn't applicable to people who didn't. And these changes might bring it a bit too far back into the other direction, not being strong enough to be meaningful, but changes were necessary for sure, so I'd rather they make them than they don't. Then we had our next major topic of the day, Season 6 and its actual mechanics, known as the Season of Hatred Rising. The main major mechanic of the season is the Realm Walker event and matching reputation system. This is meant to be a sort of companion piece to the expansion itself, rather than being its own solo thing, and so it seems to have an overlap of one of the new monster families coming in the expansion itself. And so the activity itself as well, rather than being something to take all of your attention like the Hordes did last season, is just sort of trying to be an extra thing you can do on the side, or focus if you really like it. The activity itself revolves around an event where a big giant guy with a portal on his back called a Realm Walker walks around the open world. You have to sort of will them down, follow them around, defeat their minions until they will start to fight you back. Then once you defeat them, you get into the portal that is on their back and head through the sort of mini dungeon that this puts you into, and you get to actually select the reward that you are hunting. Choose from a number of different options, and at the end of the activity you will get some consumables called opals based on the earlier choice that you made. These raise the drop rates of different items, things like equipment, crafting materials, or gold. They also showed one that affects socketables dropping, which includes both the gemstones and also giving you runes too, and there's one that makes you drop boss summoning materials and also infernal compasses. All of these will give you an XP boost while active, and this stacks with elixirs for a total of a 20% experience boost, so these will be quite important, especially for leveling, and especially considering that Paragon leveling is now a long-term goal. Well, it seems that Realm Walker-based activities, including the mini dungeon, will give the reputation reward for the seasonal reputation track in general. While you have the opal consumables active from the event, all kills that you get anywhere in Sanctuary will give reputation rewards for the seasonal event too. This also ties into the pit, with these giving the end rewards of a pit completion a chance at bonus rewards related to the opal, rather than just each individual enemy within the pit themselves. But sadly, today's sort of general wrap-up of the new class and activities for the expansion, but nothing much different from what we already knew, so much as just a build-up hype for these. So suffice it to say, they are excited for people to get their hands on all this in just a few days. The main new stuff then is just a lot more detail on the Undercity activity, things like tributes and bargains as a concept. There will be multiple types of tributes that you can use before you start an Undercity run, and these will give you special rewards for finishing an Undercity run. Things like Ancestral Legendaries being the main example they show us. This will also change the timer for each run, it will change bonuses from killing enemies, and it will also apply penalties like lower potion drop chance too, but it will also give you access to bargains, and these are modifiers for your run that will let you purchase with gold the ability to have even more specific rewards, like spending 5 million gold to make legendary armor always have a skill rank affix on it, which is of course incredibly potent, or 50 million gold, which is a lot of course, but it makes all amulets have passive ranks, which is extremely strong, because passive ranks on amulets are basically the best thing you can get on it, as long as you get the right ones. The other tribute items that we were shown are the ones that give bonus experience at the end, which is great of course, one that gives runes for rune words, and this might be one of the best ways of farming these, and then also one that actually gives you a decent chance of even a mythic unique at the end of an Undercity run, which does seem quite strong in itself, of course. Then we just had a gameplay run through of a bit of the activity on Torment 2 with a Spirit Born in the gameplay. The general rundown of the activity is there are some things that you can do that will give you more progress towards more rewards within the bar on the rate, and some enemies that will boost the timer so that you don't run out of time. Eventually you'll hit the end of the Undercity to one of 3 special bosses that are unique to the Undercity activity, and just from watching the fight it looks quite mechanically interesting, honestly, with the boss putting 1 of 2 colors around you and you then have to dodge room-wide attacks based on what debuff you've been given, which seems quite neat. Then we get a bit of a sneak peek into the Dark Citadel. I don't want to give too much away with this, but it seems to be a 3-wing multi-dungeon experience. Each of these wings is like its own elongated dungeon, but they're all connected to each other. There's lots of mechanics involved, and specifically some pretty cool looking bosses and things that require multiple people for you to do them. This is in fact the co-op required activity that you may have been hearing about. We've also gotten a bit of a look into the rewards from this that you get once per week, which is a pile of ancestral loot. Aside from that, there's also a currency called Citadel coins, which you can use to purchase special elixirs and scrolls as well, that for the most part just make you stronger, especially in parties and groups, but also the Scroll of Restoration that gives temporary rolls back to an item that has run out of them. And of course the real hefty rewards are some sets of cosmetics for the currency as well, which is really neat if you're able to collect them. That just about does it for today then, everyone. All of the new information of note from the pre-launch developer stream for the Vessel of Hatred expansion and Season 6, condensed and smushed into as short of a wrap-up as I can offer you. Hopefully you've enjoyed this, and I hope you've learned what you were after about the upcoming season here. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.
Okay, there are things I like and there are things I do not like, so let's talk about it. Over the last week, I've been playing Diablo 4's new expansion, The Vessel of Hatred. I made a Spiritborn, got through the campaign, and locked Torment 1 so that I could try out all of the content in the game. I tried out the Realms Walker's seasonal mechanic, I tried out the Cross Undercity, and the Dark Citadel, which is their new in-game raid. This video will be spoiler-free, though I will talk about my impressions of the expansion, so you are free to watch without getting worried about me ruining the campaign for you. Let's go ahead and dive into Diablo 4's new expansion, The Vessel of Hatred. Now, the first thing we talk about is the campaign. We'll just talk in general sentiments here so that we don't ruin any of the story or characters or anything like that. So let's talk about what I liked about the campaign first. It is a AAA product. It is a Blizzard art team, so you have really good art, you have really good voice acting, you have really good cinematics. Also, the characters that you see in their promotional material from the villain side of it are appealing and decently written villains. You actually feel their plight a little bit. They do a good job of convincing you as to their arguments. It's about as far as I can go in explaining the story here to you. Obviously, we're chasing Narelle, that much you know from the promotional content, and throughout you're going to experience some boss fights and some different villains. I will say, speaking on boss fights, I do wish there were a couple more. If you look back at the original Diablo 4 campaign, there's a lot of memorable boss fights throughout the campaign, and there are only a few that I can remember in the new expansion. Obviously, it's an expansion. It's not Diablo 5 or anything, and the campaign is shorter. You would expect the campaign to be shorter than the original, but I still wish there were a couple more boss fights throughout the campaign. I would say my other point of feedback is there are some things that can be a little confusing once you've completed the campaign in terms of story writing. Maybe that's just something I missed that I didn't understand, so you'll have to play through it for yourself and see if you come to the same conclusion I did of kind of scratching your head a little bit by the end of it, but it could be something that maybe the lore Andes will have picked up on more than I did, for instance. Luckily, throughout the campaign, they're introducing mechanics that all actually are quite cool. So here, let me give you an example of one. So this is the Kuros Undercity. What this is basically a dungeon that I'm going to enter, but this dungeon is heavily modified in order to be like a speed run. There's also things called tributes that I acquire and put in here, and these give you additional modifiers, almost like a Nightmare Sigil type of key, but it gives you modifiers to your rewards as well. So you can see completing the dungeon with at least attunement rank 1, which we'll talk about what the attunement ranks are here in just a second, will guarantee you runes. But then there's a bargain that I can add, in which what this would do is further customize the rewards so I can target something that I'm specifically looking for. So if I'm having problems, let's say getting like a resource legendary, I could select on that one. For me, I actually have problems getting offensive legendaries. So let's say I want to get a guaranteed offensive legendary, and then this tribute's also going to make sure that I get runes, and I need a rune. Now I'm going to open this portal, I'm going to go into the Undercity, and it's going to begin the Undercity run. Now, throughout this run, you're going to notice I got some more information on the right-hand side here. Basically, there's 4 ranks of attunement. Attunement is more or less my progression throughout this. As I go through this, you can see this timer is ticking down there. As I kill things, I will get more time back up, and I will progress on my attunement. So basically, I'm trying to do a balance of staying in it long enough to be able to progress, while also being fast enough that the timer doesn't actually run out. So you can choose just to sit there and kill the pack, or you can go from attunement to attunement, and you're going to get more and more and more rewards as you go through it. For running out of time, we can see on the minimap there that these will give us bonus time, so we can get a whole bunch of +5 seconds from killing those, and you'll come across the Goblin, the Portal Prankster. Now, the Portal Prankster is going to open up all of these different portals, and he's going to dash in between them, being highly annoying, just trying to get away from you, and you basically just want to continue the run down until you kill him. And there we go, he's down. We'll get a bunch more attunements, and now because we killed him, at the end of the run, we're going to get more bonus rewards because we don't get the rewards now, you get them at the end of the run when you've completed it. Okay, so we've completed all of the reward upgrades. Now we basically just want to run to the end of the dungeon. All right, now we're going to kill the boss real fast here, and then we'll get our rewards at the end of it. We got our extra chest here, and you can see we got a bunch of runes because the tribute gave us runes. We get the tributes of harmony, so we can do it again because we killed the goblin, and then we also got some legendary items. You'll notice that we got offensive legendary item aspects as well because that's what I had targeted. Think of it sort of like a nightmare dungeon, but a little bit more fun with a speedrun aspect in which you can customize it to sort of get what you want out of it. I got caught off guard by this because I hadn't been told about this at all. They hadn't announced in the campfire chat. It just was a mechanic I was completely blind to. So going in and running into this, I actually really enjoyed playing it because I didn't expect to have like kind of a cool speedrun, build your own dungeon type of thing. Rewards are decent. It does feel a little bit like a nightmare dungeon, or actually more accurately, a little bit more like a pit dungeon. But you know, that's sort of what Diablo is at this point in the game. You're basically running rifts, so it's sort of a modified version of that. Because you can target the rewards you're trying to acquire, and there's more tributes than just the ones I used here. It's not just going to be a few legendaries. They have ones all the way up until like guaranteed uniques, plus a higher chance to get mythic uniques, etc. So it totally depends upon what you're trying to farm. It's the first time we really have like sort of a build your own style of reward, which is a little bit more deterministic than something else we have in the game. So I think it's a decent addition, and also will mix up your gameplay a little bit. So I think most of you will enjoy the Undercity. They also do a good job throughout the campaign of interweaving the mechanics. You also are around level 45-ish by the time you completed the campaign. So it's actually a better job of getting you closer towards the end game by the time the campaign is over than the original Diablo 4. One of the things about the OG Diablo 4 is you get through the campaign, you're done right around like level 45, 50, and then you just have a ton of dungeon grinding. It was the launch of D4. But in the expansion, you really only have to do 15, 10 levels, which is much faster now to get towards that Paragon grind and sort of the in-game grind. So it's a much better flow from campaign into in-game than the game was in its previous launch. Okay, now I want to talk about what is easily my favorite part of the entire Diablo 4 expansion, the part that I think most people are really going to enjoy and probably be a little bit surprised about. Now, it's going to be a little bit of controversial because there are some people who will not be able to play this. That is the people who are solo-only players. They have a party finder system in the game, and you're going to want to use it because what I'm referring to is the Dark Citadel, which is sort of Diablo 4's answer to raids or an in-game co-op dungeon with some challenge behind it. The Dark Citadel actually surprised us. I played this with Riker, and I played it with Lucky, and during our conversation while we were playing it, we were all surprised. We kind of thought we'd go in there, it'd be some bosses, just a big take and spake, but there's actually some mechanics behind the Dark Citadel. It's going to take you a little bit of time to learn what you actually need to do. So we didn't just blindly rush through it. You actually have to pay attention to what the mechanics are, and if you don't, there's a timer basically called Impending Doom. You mess up the mechanics for too long, it's just going to wipe you, and you're going to have to restart over. So it's the first time I felt the game is actually going to push back a little bit. Okay, so let's explain what the Dark Citadel actually is. It has 3 wings. Each of the wings have different mechanics you're required to complete in order to progress. It is a team co-op based mode, so your teammates are going to have to do the mechanics in order for you to be able to progress as well. There are multiple times throughout the Dark Citadel where one person person goes to one side, you go to the other side, and the other person is stuck waiting on the other player. So you really do have to either be cohesive or play with somebody that is going to know the mechanic as well. You cannot carry somebody all the way through it because the other person has to carry their weight equally. From a damage perspective, this can happen as long as someone knows the mechanics. They can continually die over and over again. There was many times I died many times in a row, and I had a teammate with better gear than me that was able to carry the boss fight. There's times where one person has to stay in a certain dimension, the other person has to teleport to a different dimension and do a mechanic there, and then the other person actually has to summon them back, for instance. So you kind of have to trust each other. And if either of the partners fail, you both fail. Now, I am sure that voice chat enabled with a party finder, playing with people you don't know, is going to make this feel incredible. But I will say this, like a lot of things in life, the potential for great success comes with the potential for great failure. Some of my most enjoyable moments in MMOs, or really almost any game when I'm playing with somebody else, is the potential to meet someone and have a really good interaction with them. And because it's humans that are basically followable with this system, opening up to the potential of having to play with another human is going to open it up to the potential of you basically getting trolled or playing with someone under your skill level that frustrates you. But I don't really see this as a Diablo 4 raid problem. I just see this as a humanity issue. And playing the Dark Citadel with Riker and Lucky, and us learning the mechanics together and figuring it out and having the moments like, oh, that's how you do that, or like having to sit there and be like, come on, you need to work back, I'm gonna die, was actually, I say this and I mean sincerely, the most fun I have ever had in Diablo 4. There have been a lot of moments where I will get very bored with the game, having to grind materials over and over again. And that's something we haven't talked about yet. The material grind is significantly more. The push to the higher tiers is significantly harder, and acquiring and boosting your gear is going to take longer than ever before. But the Dark Citadel for me was a peak enjoyment, I believe, in this game because of the interaction I had playing with a friend, as well as adding another person in and requiring you to do mechanics opens you up to potential outside of just, am I strong enough to kill a monster? It's adding to the equation. You actually have to do like mechanics for once. So you're having to rely on another person, and you're having to rely on yourself learning the mechanics, and they're having to rely on you. So all of that actually adds, in my opinion, to the experience of the Dark Citadel. If you're someone who just wants to blast through watching Netflix and play everything solo, you're not going to like this. That's not what this is. This is active participation. Now, there are more points we could address, like how's the balance of the rewards? I thought the rewards were mid, if I'm being honest. How is the balance in terms of how strong you have to be and all that? I'm honestly not going to worry about the balance and the min-maxing side of it. I just want to address one thing, which is it fun? Honestly, I think some of the funness gets lost in the conversation of what's appropriate, what should be the right in-game, what do we need to do to fix the game. But sometimes I just have to look at it. Did I have a fun time? I did enjoy playing it because I'm focusing on the fun side of it, the conversation about should the rewards be great and all that. I'll leave that up to the people that blasted all the way through it a million times and all of the different classes on Torment 4. For me, went through it, played it with a buddy fairly casually, in my opinion, the way it's probably designed to be played, and I had a pretty good time. If I was going to spam it 50 times in a row on stream or something, I'd probably get pretty bored. But I think for most people to pick up the controller, play with a friend, you're going to have a good time. I think it's basically the most unique bosses that we've seen in terms of mechanics and design in the game. Lilith, in my opinion, was one of the more designed mechanics I had, the breaking apart and the one-shot waves and all that. And this is definitely several steps above in terms of total overall mechanics going on in the boss fight. So if you like more complicated fights, at least it has that going in it. It's not overwhelmingly complicated. These aren't Lost Ark raids or MMO RPG style raids. It is still Diablo and ARPG. So everyone, I believe, will very much be able to accomplish figuring this out, but it's definitely a step above the current boss content in the game, in my opinion. So for the Dark Citadel, I'm actually fairly positive about it. Now, there's also the Season 6 mechanic called the Realm Walker. Let's explain how the new seasonal mechanic works, the Realm Walker. There's a portal you're going to see on the map dictated by this icon here, Hatred Rising. It's going to create this Realm Walker. You're going to kill minions as you walk behind it. It will then summon Bloodbound Guardians. You kill the Bloodbound Guardians, and that is what is actually going to do damage to the Realms Walker himself. He's half HP after we kill them, and he's going to summon these spires. We'll kill the spires. Now we can actually attack the Realm Walker. We can kill him, finish him off. We'll get our reward, and then he's going to leave behind a portal called the Seething Realm. You will then go into the portal. Once we're in the portal here, there'll be more mobs. We'll continue pushing through the portal. Eventually, you'll get to a Realm Gate. Allows you to pick rewards that you actually want. So you can do Sigil Powder, for instance, for boss summoning items, Iron Chunks, which will give you gold, equipment, will be drops from Murmuring Oboes that you can push in there, or Murmuring Oboes drops herbs and crafting materials. So you can kind of target whatever you want. Like, I actually need herbs and crafting materials, so I'm going to do that one. You go in through another portal, and it is going to open this realm, which is basically another instance. You're going to clear out the instance, and just like that, the Seething Realm is completed. There you go, Quarterstaff materials. So I got 1 Greater Ancestro, I got 2 Greater Ancestro, and I also get some of the Seething Opal materials here, Tribute of Harmony, which will be for the Cursed Undercity. So it didn't take too long to do. We got some materials here, got a couple decent items. Max Life might end up being usable. Max Life, that's probably usable. And then that's pretty much the whole event. So basically, the point of seasonal mechanics is to give you a little bit of agency, sort of like the Undercity, where you can determine what kind of rewards you want to get. So that's the second time that they allow you to dictate that. Now, there is a third way in which they allow you to dictate what kind of rewards you want, which is actually through the mercenary system. So mercenaries you unlock once you get access to the Den. The Den is basically this area right here, which is sort of like a hometown for you. You have access to everything you really need. You can buy and sell stuff. You have a blacksmith, you got your enchanter there. It's just a little like HQ for you. But it also has access to the 4 different mercenaries. You got your bow guy, your axe lady, you got your Giga Chad shield dude there, and then you have your demon child edgelord. Now, each mercenary has a rapport system, and as you level up the rapport system, you get skill points, and the skill points you can use in their own little mini skill tree. Now, you basically have 2 different specializations per mercenary, so you can kind of pick which branch you want to go. I went with the the shadow version as opposed to fire, for instance, but that's a conversation for another video breaking down the mercenaries. The rapport system will also give you materials, bonuses, but they also give you these Pell Marks. And what the Pell Marks do is allow you to go to this lady in the middle of the den for bartering. And in the bartering, you can have these legendary items show up, and you can get greater affix items, like I just got a greater affix there, or you can use Pell Marks to refresh this as well if you don't have the one you want. And depending upon which person you're using, you'll get different things to show up here. For instance, the Demon Child gives you access to the resource aspect cache. And when I pick this one for the Pell Marks, it's going to give me resource aspect. So this is another way that they help you have agency depending upon who you have rapport for and who you have in your mercenary spot. You can choose to have different people and enlist them. Now I'm going to go with her, for instance, and then when I have her on there, then what's going to show up in the bartering vendor is going to be different. So this is another way that you can kind of try to get the items that you desire if you haven't got them as drops yet. The mercenary system itself is actually pretty cool and deserving of its own video, but I'll just touch on it briefly. There are two types of mercenaries you basically have. You have the mercenary that's your active one that goes with you everywhere, and then you have your reinforcement. Now, the reinforcement's pretty cool because the way the reinforcement works is when you cast a certain condition, then it will summon the move that you want to have. So, for instance, reinforcements when words during combat execute their skill at an opportunity of your choosing. It's almost like a call-in effect, sort of like the rune word system. So, if I want to pick the skill he has, I, for instance, just have the one where he, let's say, rushes in and taunts them, for instance, but maybe I wanted to have him do a ground slam, or maybe I wanted to have him do the shield throw, or whatever. It doesn't really matter, whichever one you're really doing. And you can say, okay, I want you to do that, and I want you to do it when I use Thrash, for instance, or maybe when I use my ultimate, I want you to do this. So you can kind of pick what it is that makes the reinforcement actually happen. And of course, you have rapport that you can level when your character is with you. So if you have the demon child following you, it's getting rapport. If you have this guy as a reinforcement, he's getting rapport as well, for instance. So for me, the mercenaries are a thumb up. I don't think they're a massive like selling point of the game. I think they're pretty cool, but they do go away when you're doing with people. So it's not like everyone's really bringing a mercenary plus the players and just people are spamming. You have them for when you're basically solo, but you cannot use the mercenary to duo the Citadel, for instance, because the Citadel requires like all kinds of mechanics. So in conclusion, like I said in the beginning of this video, there are things I like and things I do not like about the expansion. I do wish that the story was maybe a little bit longer. I wish the campaign had a little bit more boss fights in it. Like I feel like there's about 80% of the campaign. There's about a 20% there that I felt like would have been nice to have in addition on top of the campaign. It wasn't a full double thumb up for me on the campaign, if I'm being honest. However, I do really like the better flowing you into the in-game from the campaign. It's still enjoyable to play through, and I really do like the mechanics that are introduced throughout the campaign. And the Dark Citadel is pretty much my favorite thing they've added in the game so far. And they actually added what I had asked for forever ago with the Gauntlet, which is why not just put cosmetics tied to the actual in-game content? Like you do some cool, difficult in-game content, and you get cool cosmetics. And it looks like Kitty Cat actually agrees with that point. So that's pretty much it. If you're looking forward to the Dark Citadel and that is your primary reason to purchase this, then you'll probably enjoy it. If your primary reason is to play only the campaign, you don't really continue to play the in-game or anything like that, I think it's all right, to be honest with you. But if you're someone who already plays Diablo 4 on a consistent basis and you're just looking for more additional content, that's basically what the expansion is. It is an expansion to the original game. It is not Diablo 5. It is not a sequel. It is not doubling the content. It's an expansion to what already exists. I want to mention this here at the end. Twitch.tv/microtransaction link is down below. We will be live for the launch of the game and to answer questions as of the posting of this video. If you have any questions about the expansion, it's non-spoiler stuff, feel free to come on by. I will happily answer those for you, as well as there are Twitch drops upon the about 18 hours after the launch of the game. There will be Twitch drops that you can earn for free by watching the channel as well, which will give you in-game cosmetics. Thanks for watching this video and review. I hope you get a number of weeks of enjoyment out of the expansion if you do end up picking it up. If you want to see a preview of it before you actually purchase it, you can always come by the live stream, ask me questions about my experience playing it, or watch the live stream on the release of Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing if you want to see more videos, and I'll see you on the next one.
For a bit. Try to finish that up. This is why I can't draw and think at the same time.
Ladies, gentlemen, and hurrah of all ages, the review embargo is up, and I can now officially talk in full detail about my early experience playing the new Vessel of Hatred expansion, as well as Season 6 for Diablo 4. For context, we had access to the server for a bit over a week. It was disconnected from our main account, so we didn't have anything carry over like Renown or something like that, meaning that we had the full fresh start experience for the expansion. We could skip the base campaign, of course. That said, I dove face first into every activity on offer, new or old, experienced a ton, and so in the coming days, we'll have a ton of different videos about different mechanics, and especially things like the Spiritborn class itself. But today, to start with something somewhat simple but important, a general review of everything new. First up, we should start with the new campaign in Vessel of Hatred. I won't be spoiling anything, no cutscenes that aren't publicly released, no deep in gameplay or anything like that. And so without going into too much detail, the campaign is honestly fantastic. It's super high tier, exactly the type of thing that I would expect from a Diablo storyline at this stage, as they do constantly hit with these very well, especially in the main releases. It carries off from where the base game ended, and it ties off a lot of the loose ends that were around, as well as starting some new threads, of course. It feels like it truly takes you through Nahantu as a new region, and it tries to have you connect with the world around you in this area too, as you continue through the game. As a cool side note here as well, a number of conversations and interactions are actually unique if you are playing Spiritborn, as of course there are Spiritborn characters in the main story, and they obviously know what a Spiritborn is, so if you're playing a Spiritborn, your home is Nahantu, and that changes some of the context, rather than being a visitor like the other classes are treated. And so things are a little bit different, and I love that they thought about that and included alternate dialogue where applicable. The cutscenes are all incredible, honestly. There is a lot of just absolutely beautiful visual spectacles along the way through these, and importantly, I never felt like my time was being wasted in the campaign. It was relatively snappy one thing to another, always one story thread to the next, never really lingering too long on any one note. If I had one major criticism of the story, it would be something that we probably all expected, which is that it is very clearly caring a lot about setting up the next expansion story and creating hype for a continued storyline from this through to next year. And while that sort of does need to happen if they want another expansion to make sense, if they want people to be hyped for it, it does leave you with a bit of a feeling like your job isn't finished when the campaign wraps up here, at least in my opinion. Next up then, the absolutely major thing is the new full-on class, and I had the joy of spending about 90% of my time in this review build playing Spiritborn. I played it a few months ago at an early event down at Blizzard HQ, and while the bones of the class are the same. The ideas are still there. It feels just so significantly more refined and polished than it did before. At the event, it was really easy to break the class. There were tons of things that you could do that just made it absolutely busted even at level 30. And while there are still ways to quote-unquote break the class, they are much more reined in, targeted, and generally they are something that you have to work towards rather than just putting on the right combination of skill tree nodes and, becoming an instant god. The overarching mechanic then of Spiritborn is called the Spirit Hall. And while I'll get into way more detail into all of the Spiritborn specific stuff in extra videos on Spiritborn in the coming days, the Spirit Hall essentially gives you a choice between 16 different possible combinations of ways to change your playstyle. Some of these have a much more major effect than others, some are much more minor, and currently they are pretty imbalanced between each other, to be honest, with a few really standing out, others being much more quality of life or utility, but some of them just stand above the others. We'll talk about what's specifically powerful and not in the Spiritborn specific videos that I mentioned before, but for now let's just talk about what it does and how it feels. Generally speaking, the important things to know for now are that the Jaguar Spirit Hall options generally boost your attack speed or give you ferocity, which also affects attack speed, and it gives bonuses based around this. Eagle Spirit Hall boosts evades and gives you a sub-power that works with evades, and the secondary Eagle Spirit Hall gives you growing crit chance when you move that resets when you crit. Gorilla Spirit Hall messes with damage reduction and resolve. It gives you barrier on hit, and the resolve is a new specific Spiritborn mechanic that reduces your incoming damage, but loses a stack when you get hit. Gorilla Spirit Hall also gives you an active Thorns-based playstyle, making it so every hit that you do also applies your Thorns damage to enemies that you hit, and making fucking new ways of scaling around Thorns as a result that I really, really love conceptually. Then Centipede is all about debuffing your enemies, lowering their damage, slowing them, and healing you as you apply poisons as well. So really just two sides of the same coin, life and death and the balance between them. The primary Hall choice also importantly adds its Guardian skill tag to every skill on the tree, meaning if you have primary Spirit Hall choice as Gorilla, and then you cast an Eagle skill, it counts as both an Eagle skill and a Gorilla skill. This adds just by itself so much depth to the way that the build are created for the class, and Spiritborn is easily actually the deepest build creating class in the game. There is a ton of potential variety within it, and while most of the high-end builds will likely have a large focus either around armor stacking with the legendary aspect that converts armor into bonus weapon damage, or Mystic Circles, which are a lucky hit chance sub-power to create with certain aspects that apply a bunch of different bonuses depending on what skills you cast within them. These will be base templates of how to make things strong in general, but these apply so widely to so many just different parts of the class that you could build around, you can actually make the majority of Spiritborn's kit extremely strong if you choose to focus on it and base the actual power center around one of those two things. A lot of the class is vital in different ways, and while of course there will be a couple of things that stand out at the precipice as normal, a class with this much potential high-end variety is just really, really nice to see. On a Spiritborn specific note as well, the Spiritborn class mechanic unlock quest is really quite special compared to the others. It definitely feels longer than the other mechanic unlock quests for the other classes, so the people who care about hyper efficiency probably won't like that, but it is a fun quest, and not that I want to spoil it at all, so to say that it takes you to the spirit realm, and it asks you to do a fair bit more than just killing things. There's some cinematicness and some spectacle involved in all of it that just makes it feel really unique. As for higher levels, I've tried mixing and matching guardians and abilities in tons of different ways, and the main takeaway that I have is that the class just feels really, really good to play. Pretty much everything that sparked my interest and made me think that it might be worth trying worked. It was worth trying. No matter which guardians I messed with as my focus, no matter which abilities I built around, the class felt good. Of course, the numbers were different between these, some of them are stronger than others, but numbers can be adjusted, numbers can be changed. What matters is that the things feel good to play in your hands. And as someone who has actively played every class in this game at one point or another since launch, Spiritborn feels absolutely incredible. I'd say, generally speaking, the best feeling class overall to me until this point has been Rogue. It just has a lot of parity between its abilities, a lot of speed, interesting synergies, and a lot of high-end builds that are relatively balanced between each other. It feels extremely good to play from the start of leveling all the way to hyper in-game builds, and Spiritborn feels extremely similar to that in that way, to me at least. If the class looks interesting to you at all from any of the stuff you've seen before release, I'd say you should probably try it this season. It's just plain fun, and it's worth the time. Moving on now, I know I talked about the class a lot, but it is probably the biggest addition really to the game here from this, but there's a lot of other stuff going on here too. Nahantu itself is a really neat new region addition to the game. The dungeons and strongholds within the region are very unique compared to the other regions too. The strongholds are much more in-depth and interesting, but also quite a bit longer than the other region strongholds in general, so they're quite good for a first-time visit, but not necessarily great for efficiency blasting once you've already been there. The dungeons are also quite similar. Nahantu dungeons are designed in a totally different way to the rest of the dungeons in the game, rather than being a big sprawling dungeon with a million different objectives that you have to complete before you finish it, and it forces you to backtrack like 10 times like we had in the base game release, or the currently updated versions of those dungeons, which are much more linear in their pathing and simple in their objectives to let players just burn through high-density corridors monsters without backtracking. Instead of either of these, Nahantu dungeons try to find a sort of weird middle ground. The main objective is nearly always just get to the boss and then kill the boss. Simple as that. But then the dungeon itself is usually quite big. There's usually a number of optional areas and unique sort of side events like animus dropping enemies that you could find in normal dungeons in the base game, but here they're optional and you can collect all their ammo to hand it in for a bonus chest. All of this creates a lot more optional content in dungeons, a lot more things that you can do but don't have to, and that's a good thing in itself. But my main criticism for these is that it feels really bad to have fog of war on the dungeon map with how these dungeons work. I get the idea behind making the only forced objective the boss and then giving optional stuff that you could do, but it seems sort of like a moot point if I don't know where the boss is without having to explore the whole place anyways and then backtracking 3 times regardless. This feels like a very interesting evolution from what dungeons have been in the game in the past, and I think with some work they will be really enjoyable. But again, my major concern with these is just the fog of war makes it confusing because it feels like they want to give you the option to go right to the end immediately, but if you don't know where the end is, you just can't do that. As for the main new activities in the expansion itself, there's Kurast Undercity. This unlocks during the story, but you don't really have full access to what it offers until you finish its dedicated questline as well and unlock tributes. Tributes allow you to modify an Undercity run, which makes it harder than normal for your difficulty tier, while also giving you extra rewards at the end. Worth mentioning here that on the review build, 3 of these weren't actually functioning properly, so my information on how they actually work is a bit limited to what we are told should happen. But this activity with the tribute that makes it drop runes is supposed to be the main source of rune farm in the game once it hit live. The rewards from this feel genuinely good at the moment. The boss summon tribute especially absolutely works. That's the one that definitely worked for us, and you get quite a pile of them at the end of your run. It feels like a rewarding activity that is worth doing, and the pace of it in the middle is actually just super go from the start to the finish, and that feels pretty unique too. It's sort of like Hordes without the breaks in the middle and in a much smaller sort of burst. The main draw of these, in my opinion, is that there are 3 different sort of versions of the Undercity, each with a different aesthetic and a different boss at the end of the actual run, a unique boss. And to put it simply, these are some of the best designed bosses in the entire game. They are mechanically interesting, they are visually fun and unique, and they have their own personally designed boss rooms that actually generally have an effect on the fight as well, and are sometimes even included. I am a massive fan of these bosses, and I hope they do more fights like this in the future. Then after that, we have the new super endgame mechanic, the activity, the Dark Citadel. This requires at least 2 players to complete, and we of course did it with the 3 of us who play here on the channel, and it was pretty solid overall. The general flow of it is a floor of just regular enemies where your only goals are to find specific marked targets that you need to kill to increase your end reward. You don't actually have to kill them to finish the event, but you need it if you want the rewards. Or you can just find the door to the next chamber. The areas are big and full of enemies that don't really give you anything in particular, so it adds to the atmosphere of the place, but I think after the first time you head through the Dark Citadel, most people will just fully ignore most of the enemies in these areas between, because they don't stop you from progressing, they don't really give you anything either, so they sort of just feel like they are intermissions between the actual interesting parts of the Dark Citadel. I won't tell you what every boss is going to be like, or the puzzles, or every encounter, but I will show you just a little bit, and the reason is because this actually has really interesting boss mechanics to it. The very basest use of the multiplayer requirement for this is the button pads that require 2 buttons to be pressed at the same time, and obviously you can't stand on 2 buttons as one person. But this extends outwards past that to things like space management mechanics in boss fights, like an actual raid, a fight with a teleportation mechanic where you need to split up rather than all going to the same place together, a fight where you get symbols above each player's head that sort of dictate where you have to go and what you have to do. I just finished giving praise to the Undercity bosses for being some of the most interesting in the whole game that we've had so far, but the reason that I worded it that way specifically is because the 3 main Dark Citadel wing-ending bosses are just straight up the 3 most mechanically interesting bosses in the whole game, in my opinion. And the actual rewards that you get at the end are pretty solid too. The rewards per run are quite meh in their own. You won't be wanting to run Dark Citadel on repeat really, but you do get a very hefty reward cache for completing all 3 wings each week. The weak point of this activity, if I had to give it one, is by far the sections between the bosses and the puzzles, but I can absolutely accept that then when the bosses and puzzles are enjoyable, and they are, that the parts between them can be a bit less. So overall, just very positive impressions from this activity as well, and it could definitely be made even better in the future, or just more of these sort of systems added on, more activities, more wings, just another Dark Citadel, essentially. Then next up, we should talk about the mercenary system. The mercenary system is something that I was worried beforehand would be very sort of invasive to the Diablo experience. I was worried that we'd have to play around them in some way, or that they would be just taking up a large amount of my screen, or yelling at me constantly. And to put it simply, they just sort of do their job and follow you around relatively quietly. They do talk sometimes. There isn't a massive amount of depth to them as a system, but there is enough that it is impactful. They do have skill trees, and they can affect you with their abilities. Most players will default to a couple of choices of mercenaries if they care about your power and efficiency, but each mercenary has their own personality and their own story and unlock quest, with which are all quite fun to engage. Mechanically, they are reduced to a follower, essentially, with 4 abilities, a basic skill, a core skill with a cooldown, a longer cooldown, stronger skill, and their inherent ability, which sometimes is passive, sometimes is active. They all have their own passives as well, and you can also have a reinforcement chosen, which is essentially the ability to have one skill from a mercenary to come out whenever you feel like it should, though it doesn't take in any of the passive effects from that skill tree itself. The end result of the mercenary system is essentially like the Seneschal companion from Season 3, but if it had maybe 1/10 of the impact that did. It matters for sure, but it definitely isn't build defining. And a fun part of this is that they seem to matter much more while leveling than they do while you're maxed out, which is exactly what I would hope for this too. I would hope that it makes it easier to level, but doesn't actually require you to be completely on top of it when you're doing a proper blasting build. Then the last sort of Vessel of Hatred specific thing that I want to talk about here is the runes and rune words. We were pretty limited on our actual supply on these on the review build due to a few issues with drops from certain activities, but the main result is that they're just far less impactful than what they were on the PTR. You saw the patch notes come out after the recent dev stream. The Warcry rune no longer gives Berserking, the Petrify rune no longer gives the crit damage bonus, and they did a lot of things like this across the board. There still are good and bad runes, but the good ones are less ridiculously good, and the bad ones are less ridiculously bad. Like mercenaries, they definitely do matter, just far less than we were worried that they would, especially after the PTR. Before I move on to the non-expansion stuff, then I do want to make a quick note that both the story campaign and Dark Citadel actually also give you access to a number of new, unique cosmetics for your wardrobe in game that are pretty solid looking compared to a lot of the base game armor and weapons too, because I know a lot of people always wonder about stuff like that specifically. That said, I now want to talk about the Season 6 mechanic itself, which is Realm Walkers and the Seething Opals. The Realm Walker activity is great when it's up every 15 minutes. The timer starts in a random region. After 5 minutes, the Realm Walker will spawn in. If you miss the spawn time, though, you are locked out until the next one comes. After the Realm Walker spawns, it will be invincible and create the minions. Kill the minions that it spawns to fill a bar that spawns some new elites. Kill the elites to do some free damage to the Realm Walker while it is otherwise invincible. That said, that's all pretty much just a bonus. If you just wait for the Realm Walker to walk to its end location, the only difference will be that it will have some more health for the proper fight. Once it arrives, it will create 3 pillars that you then have to destroy, and once you do that, it will become fightable as a proper boss. Defeat it, and then you can enter the portal that's on its back, and inside you get to choose what type of opal you want at the end of the mini dungeon that follows, which is a unique consumable. The activity itself is honestly quite fun. It's engaging. The mini dungeons inside of the Realm Walkers feel pretty rewarding too, especially when you find things like portal goblins or mini events that give loads of murmuring opals. There's lots of good stuff inside here that makes it a very enjoyable activity. My main criticism here is that it should just be up more often. They sort of function like Legion events, where if you go early to one, you just sort of have to sit there and wait, but if you go late, you will miss it entirely until the next one, and you gotta wait for it to cycle again. While I can understand why they would do this to manage the actual activity and keep it from getting out of hand, it just feels a little bit awkward, because I really did just have a point where I wanted to sort of run Realm Walkers one after the other, and if you want to do that, there's just a lot of waiting involved and intermissions in between that you just have no control over. As for the opals themselves, they feel pretty great. When I'm low on materials, I pop a material opal and then I go kill stuff. If you want boss summon materials, pop boss summon opal and then go kill stuff. There are a number of bugs with the opals on the review build that I've been told will be fixed going to live servers, and if so, I have genuinely no negatives for this system. It's just a really fun addition and a good idea for a thing that will only stick around for one season at a time. Past that, the other main thing that I really want to talk about, because most things are quite similar to the PTR, is the way that the difficulty has changed, because I don't necessarily think that it's good or bad, but I want people to know what they're getting into. Torment 4 difficulty, the highest world tier in the game come the expansion, has been made harder than it was on the PTR, and for the most part, most classes will only have 1 or 2 builds that will be able to function normally in Torment 4. Do not expect for your random fun meme build to make it to Torment 4. I'm not saying there's a problem with running a random fun meme build, those are great, but just don't expect it to be able to make it to that final level of content. Simple as that. Pretty much everything else, though, at this point has either been talked about or we'll have a dedicated video coming up for it soon, but my main overarching feeling about this update and this expansion as a whole is that it's just honestly a really solid addition to the game. A large number of the best bosses that are in the game now are only here because of this expansion. The 2 new major activities are both great and will absolutely be a welcome addition once players get their hands on them. The new class is extremely well made with tons of options, and it feels really good to play. The campaign is lovely, the music is fantastic too, the music is great, and the seasonal mechanic itself is pretty solid too. There are bugs, there are issues. I would absolutely not call it perfect. There's things that need to be changed, but it follows the same upward trajectory that Diablo has been on for the last couple of seasons, and just a much larger jump. It continues to improve, and everything they add is good, even if it could be slightly better. And that is what matters most to me. Everything that's added is good. Even things that are jarring at first, like the maximum level change, the stat squish, the paragon changes, the change skill trees, all of it just actually feels like it works long term. It didn't feel weird once I played with it for a bit, and it started to feel a bit more natural. I still would like one more paragon board, maybe, but that's just sort of a disagreement of where I think the limit should be, because I do agree with them that there should probably be a limit to begin with. Overall, I just had a great time with the review build of the expansion, and as long as you know what you're getting into, I think it's worth it if you're considering it. If you played Season 5 and you didn't like it, then this probably won't be enough to change your mind. If you quit back in like Season 3 and haven't played since then, a lot has changed in this time, and you may very well enjoy this expansion now. If you're someone who enjoyed either Season 4 or Season 5, played the game, had fun, this one improves even further than those things did, and there's just a lot of worthy additions to the game coming along with it. This just about does it for everything today then. All of my feelings on the expansion and the season summed up relatively briefly. Let me know your own thoughts in the comments down below, and if you have any questions that we can answer, we will do so too. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on almost a daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Is, goodbye.
Oh yeah, more shit in my playlist is reminding me I still need to finish farming the Infernape event before the next Terra. Actually, it's not really a big Terra raid I'm concerned about with the next thing in Scarlet and Violet. There's new mass outbreaks though this weekend, so I want to be ready for that.
The one thing I'll say about Spiritborn is it's hard not to enjoy it. I know it's not a paladin, but Spiritborn's actually pretty dope. The new expansion campaign, in my opinion, did not live up to the history of Diablo having a good campaign. I think the Dark Citadel was literally the best content Diablo 4's ever had. Now, whether or not that's enough for you to buy the expansion is up for you. D4 good now? Oh, I mean, it's significantly better. So the embargo is up. We can now show footage and discuss things. Did you have fun playing this expansion? I enjoyed the campaign, but there was some stuff that was confusing about it for me. That's about as much as I'm going to say, because I don't want to spoil any of the campaign for you. You'll probably see what I mean. And I also had the most fun I've had in the game with the Dark Citadel. The Undercity was pretty cool. The Realms Walkers were a little underwhelming, and the Rune Words are mid. So for me, I had fun. There are some things that are not as exciting, and the progression was extremely slow compared to where we've been before. I'm sure they're going to retool that. They already said they were going to, so I'm not quite sure where it's going to end up upon launch. Scale of 1 to 10, whether you rank the VOH. Depends upon what you're asking about, dude. I hate giving these generic ratings. If you're asking the Dark Citadel, I think it's like a 9. If you're asking campaign, I think it's like a 5 maybe. Realms Walkers are mid. The Undercity's like a 7 or 8. That was pretty cool. You can average them all out if you want, but like I have different feelings about different each individual piece of content. D4 good now? Oh, I mean, it's significantly better. I actually think if D4 released with all of this, like if all of this content was in the base game, I'm talking Rune Words, the Dark Citadel, you know, all of this shit was in the base game, including all the season mechanics we had so far, it would have been a banging release. Like people would have been like, let's fucking go, it's great, but it's climbing back from a deficit. Like Diablo 4 actually has a pretty good base game. It's arguably more than the base game. There's a lot to do, but now you know you have to pay $40 expansion to get there, so that's gonna argue with people's goodwill, and they're climbing back from the D4 bad meme. But like the game has a lot to do, and it's actually pretty fun. At this point, it's not just like hit the end game and you're done. Like there's shit to do. Like you can actually play the game for a while at this point. So I don't think oh it's a shit game and all. Like I don't think that's fair anymore. It's legitimately decent. If this is how it was on the release with everything in it, I think people would have actually like given it a good reception. How long is the Vessel of Hatred campaign compared to the original? I believe most people are going to get through it in about 6 hours. My character was 9 hours by the time I completed all of the side things, unlocked the mercenary, unlocked the tutorials from like the Undercity, was AFK over an hour, as well as went really slow, watched all cinematics, and listened to all voice lines. So I think it's significantly earlier than the 9 hours, because I was literally playing RuneScape the whole time, as well as I was AFK for over an hour combined. So I think most people it's going to be 5-6 hours. I think people that are spam skipping through it and blasting through and know what to do, like 3 hours. You thought campaign was too short? It felt too short for me on the initial impression. Other people felt like it was long, but I think like a 6-hour campaign, it felt a little short to me. I wish I'd gone on maybe like one more act. I didn't feel like I was satisfied enough by the end of it. You'll see what I mean. I guarantee you it will be obvious that you'll know what I mean. And also Riker does a pretty good job of breaking down his feelings on the campaign without doing spoilers. Well, I'd recommend his video. Given how prolonged the original campaign was, I'm okay with it being short. I would be okay with it being short if so. What you're buying for the expansion is the new class, the Dark Citadel, the Undercity, the new regions, including the strongholds, and then the campaign. So that's pretty much it. So if the campaign, in my opinion, is not a very large part of the game, and if the Dark Citadel is locked to co-op only, and the Realms Walker is literally seasonal content already, in my opinion, the campaign needs to be a pretty big part of the game. Rune Words, true, Rune Words, but I think Rune Words are kind of boring. So in my opinion, the campaign's a pretty big portion of why you would spend the $40. I believe that the original campaign of Diablo 4 is actually quite good. Like I think the OG campaign's quite good. You can replay it sometimes for the enjoyability if you want. I replayed it again in season 5. We did the whole playing through all the Diablos in a row, and I think the OG campaign lived up to the other campaigns throughout the other game. I think there's a lot of D4 bad memes, etc., but that's normally about the in-game, the balance, the itemization, all that. It's not. No one really says the D4 are bad because the campaign's shit. Like that's not really something you ever hear. I think the OG campaign was actually quite good, including cinematics, voice acting, as many boss fights, etc. The new expansion campaign, in my opinion, did not live up to the history of Diablo having a good campaign. In my opinion, having played through all of them recently, I actually think the latest expansion campaign is the worst campaign out of all of them, in my opinion. I think it's literally my least favorite. Now, I don't think it's horrible. I enjoyed my time playing through it, but I think it's not as good as any other campaign in any of the other games. That might be something that other people disagree with. They might absolutely love the campaign. I talked to 2 other people directly after being in the campaign, which were named nameless, and I felt a very similar vibe from them as well. You're welcome to watch other people's reviews on it. I think there's multiple reviews of the campaign, but we're all not doing spoilers, so it's hard to give the reason why. After the 7th, when the game is actually out, you're welcome to come back to me, and I will give you in-depth reason as to why I actually did not like the campaign. That's why when I say if you're looking to purchase the game, in my personal opinion, the reason to purchase the game is the Dark Citadel. The campaign's the last thing I look for in a good Diablo game, but to each their own. Fair enough. My argument would be all of the campaigns in Diablo were quite good and enjoyable. I actually feel like the campaigns are a very good reason to play the game, even if it's not the majority of the reason to stay with the game. I think if you're a Diablo enjoyer and you play it for long periods of time, you're probably not someone who's only playing it or primarily focusing on the campaign. You're playing it for systems, the mechanics, the grind, the classes, the builds. But for me, even though all of that is typically what we think about ARPGs, the Diablo has, in my opinion, of all ARPGs, the best campaign and story. Period. I like PoE, and I like the campaign because the bosses are good, but I like the PoE campaign from a mechanic and boss perspective. I think the Diablo campaigns 1, 2, 3, 4 are better than the PoE campaigns from a playthrough story and enjoyable period. Like I just do. Okay, if you're a PoE person like myself too, you maybe like, no, you can't say anything bad about PoE, but I think Diablo has the best campaign out of all of the ARPGs. So when I play the expansion of the Diablo 4, I am looking for a good campaign because that is something that has consistently happened in all of the Diablo franchise, and in my opinion, is a reason I would purchase
the game. It's not even close, especially D2. D1 was very good, and D1's my favorite of all of the Diablos. D2 had amazing music, amazing cinematics, great story, easy to understand and well written, great voice acting, go to game. Even the D3 campaign is quite good. We get Tyrael, we get the Giga Chad. I think D3 is a little underrated from the campaign. I think the D3 campaign is actually pretty good too. And the Diablo 4 campaign I think is up there. Like I think maybe it goes, in my opinion, D1, D2, D4, D3 in terms of the campaign. So that's why when I have my rating on how I feel about the expansion, I am considering the campaign in my opinion because I do think the Diablo campaign is quite important. Dark Sailor could be fun. How mechanically hard is the raid? It's a gear plus knowledge check. It's not what I would consider mechanically difficult. None of the timings are particularly short. The only timing is the Impending Doom, which is fairly large. So if you know all of the mechanics, then you can complete it. What is dangerous is having a knowledge gap. So if you're going in hardcore completely blind, good luck. I believe you will lose your character. I would bet on that every time. But in Diablo, there's typically not things that are like massively difficult skill checks. You could argue there's things like Lilith or something and you got to avoid it and have knowledge. But again, I'd argue it's mostly knowledge. So I believe everyone will very easily be able to clear this in Tournament 1 with almost any build as long as you know what you're doing. And it can be learned fairly quickly. I think the first time we did it, obviously blind users earned access in Tournament 1. I had a dog shit build. It took us as a group, I believe, an hour and 20-some minutes to both figure it out and play through it. That's insane over an hour. By the time the third run was done, we did it in 45 minutes. Where are the rewards for it once it's completed? There are two types of rewards. There's rewards at the end of completion, and there's rewards that you get periodically for completing the treasure wardens and going to the next portion of each individual week. You do the treasure wardens, upgrade your reward here. You get to the next section, you're going to get dropped to have legendary items, rare items, uniques, things like that in it. And then at the end, you're going to get another dump of rewards. And once you complete all three of them, you're going to get the Dark Citadel cache, which has, again, legendary items, uniques, greater affixes, and the scroll of tempering, which is more important because it resets, or restorations, what they call it. It resets your ability to temper an item again, so you don't basically unbrick it. Keep in mind that that restoration scroll is given to you within the season journey. You are not required to do this in order to unlock that scroll. I do not know how rare the drop rate of these scrolls are outside of the Dark Citadel, and it is a weekly cache that you receive. So you cannot farm this multiple times over and over and over and over and over again the same day. It is a weekly daily cache. That being said, there are still coins you can farm, and those coins can be used to purchase things like cosmetics, gear cache rewards, and these potions like instances and elixirs that are better than the previous instances and elixirs. But they are like experience, for instance. There you go. Citadel conquered. You get the cache. You get some rewards. Scroll of Restoration, which is what I was talking about earlier, and the coin cache, which the coins are used in the store. And then there's a cache. You can see some greater affixes. You can see another scroll, coin caches, some uniques. Not too crazy, but like decent rewards. Wonder if there will be Uber Dark Citadel functioning at some point. They could expand upon the Dark Citadel. It wouldn't be too hard to expand upon it. You could add additional wings or Uber version of the bosses, I guess. I would assume the way they're going to do it, like pushing content, like power creeping and the ceiling of content in the future, is just adding more torment difficulties. I think they basically set themselves up to the point where if they power creep the game, all they have to do is move back the torment level. So they're probably going to do that. I'm not saying that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm just saying that's probably realistically how they have it set up. So for me, I actually thought the Dark Citadel was easily my favorite part of the game so far. When I played this, everyone I played it with was surprised. We kind of thought it was going to be the type of thing where I played it 3 times. We actually thought it was going to be the sort of thing where it's like, okay, maybe just take the spank kill with the bosses. Like Gauntlet. You know how Gauntlet was a little underwhelming? The Dark Citadel wasn't underwhelming because they phase out the damage in the bosses. So when you get to a boss, you can only get like 1/3 of its life. So even if you're one-shotting the boss, you only get to 1/3, and then you actually have to do a mechanic. So they gauge you behind knowledge and gear. Do you feel you'll probably have some good fun in D4 again? Playing the Citadel and figuring out the mechanics was one of the most fun experiences I've ever had, if not easily the most fun experience. Like I think it probably was the most fun experience, man. It feels like it easily was to me. That and the Lilith fight. Like I like challenges that you're trying to figure out. Everyone has the raid solved before release, though. I mean, I think there's only like less than 40 people that have access to it. There will be guides out, so people can figure it out if you want. People are still going to die to it. If you only play in a party of 2, you try it with 4. I tried it with 2, 3, and 4. Every mechanic in the game requires 2 people. You cannot solo it. You can play with 2 people. There are some portions in which it's more difficult. The fact that this stuff's already solved is such a bummer, like let the community learn, then I would not watch the guides. If you want to go into a blind, go into a blind. How many hours does it take to complete Citadel? You can do all 3 wings in an hour total. The rewards are not unique to the raid. You are correct. So there are tempering scrolls, but you can get them outside of it. In fact, there's one in the season journey. The only thing that's unique to the raid is the cosmetics, which you can only get from tier 4. There are other cosmetics that drop in the lower tiers, but it's not the Giga Chad cosmetics, the green ones, which is from tier 4. You can also save up your coins and purchase the rewards as well. This is going to be for sure how a lot of people lose their hardcores in the Dark Citadel. But my plan is to go through, figure out a build in softcore, and try to do this in hardcore. Maybe convince one of the other people to play with me. I know Pox is interested. Maybe I can get Riker to play, and then try to push through the Citadel as hardcore duo. I think would be quite interesting. Yeah, playing with Riker and Lucky was very enjoyable too. Like I think that you have somebody you enjoy playing these games with. Like this is really good co-op content. It is actually very enjoyable as a duo. Like for me, I think the Dark Citadel was literally like the best content Diablo 4's ever had, in my opinion. I think it is. Now whether or not that's enough for you to buy the expansion is up for you. That's why I'm showing you the Dark Citadel so you can see what it is and decide if you want to buy it or not. For me, I'm going to play this with a buddy and I'm going to have a good time with it because the Dark Citadel is actually quite fun. And then trying to push the hardcore to be on tier 4 is going to be very difficult. Like pushing the higher torments is not just a meme anymore. You don't just one shot through everything unless you're playing like Spearboard and Pestilence build, I guess. So best content ever D4 is force mandatory and big huge people that don't like multiplayer. It's for an MMO
because I need to figure out what I'm putting in the hands,
the game's content
it's going to cause
targeted around more MMO playstyle than it is previously. If you feel like it's a few because Diablo is supposed to only be for single player players, fair enough. However, this content is specifically for co-op people. So you can either say it's a few to everybody, or you can say it's the added content for people that actually have co-op. I would argue there are mechanics like the ones where you have to have another player that literally cannot be added into the game unless you do it with other people. Like these mechanics require co-op because you cannot physically do the mechanics without another person. So they can't develop what the Dark Citadel is without another person because there's 2 rounds you have to go at the same time, etc. So I don't know how they would make this content for a solo person. It would be something totally different, which they added the Undercity and Realms Walkers, which is 2 new pieces of content. So for me, this is the best, but I also like playing with people. Maybe you like the Undercity better. So don't add the mechanic or make them optional. It is optional. Literally the only reward is cosmetic. You could argue that you want the expansion without this, just so that you don't feel bad as a solo player, but then you're literally asking for a worse expansion. I feel like when I hear the argument, it's you want to play this content because you think it looks fun, but you don't want to play with another person, which is fair feedback. But it looks fun because the mechanics are cool, but the mechanics are designed around 2 people. Like like Portal 2 is a cool game, but if you don't have another person, not as cool. I disagree that it limits content, just don't make content that requires a party. But you just said it. So it's like, it doesn't limit content, just don't make the content that requires, you're cutting that portion, the content that does require the other party. That you said the thing you said it doesn't do, which is, it doesn't stop us from making certain types of content. Don't do this type of content. That's the thing. Let's say they did make a solo version, that's different, because it would have to be different. Are then we're going to move the goalpost to, you can't make this multiplayer content now, because it has more mechanics in the solo version. Why doesn't the solo version have that many mechanics? Well, it can't. You literally can't. Because the only mechanics in here that are things you couldn't do solo are the duo mechanics. Now, there could be an argument to be made, which is that don't put dev time into creating content that doesn't work for solos. Now, that is an argument you're welcome to make, and which on that point, absolutely I understand. Like, if you're saying, I don't want dev time to go to making content that's more than one people. Fair enough argument, you're welcome to your opinion. And I'm not saying that I don't want solos to have content, but I'm saying that obviously they're moving forward with the Diablo franchise in which they want content that is deeper, that does require more people to do. So we could disagree with the direction they're taking it. You could like the direction they're taking it because it's adding more depth. You could disagree and say that I would rather have dev time go elsewhere, and all of those are opinions you are welcome to. But I don't hate that we have a game that was designed as an open world, more MMO, advertised more as an MMO, and then now is being delivered upon content that's more MMO. I don't hate that because that's what they advertised Diablo 4 as, and what I was personally excited for. You might like something different, fair enough. If you do not like the fact that it's two-player, I would suggest not buying the expansion because you will not be able to do what is, in my opinion, the best portion of the expansion. I very firmly believe the Dark Citadel is the reason to buy the expansion. I probably would not buy the expansion for the campaign only. I think Realms Walkers, being that's in the base game as well, are pretty boring, but if you like the Realms Walker, you don't have to buy the expansion for that. The only other portion is Runewords, the Renown from New Hantu, and the Unter City. I don't think any of those are worth the price tag, so in my opinion, if you are solo only, you refuse to do multiplayer, which is a choice you're making, by the way. Because there's a party finder in the game, you're specifically saying, I am choosing not to interact with this content. That is a choice you are making, okay? So if that's what you're doing, do not buy the expansion because that is the focus of this expansion. I said so in my review, and it's the same thing I think. Like, this is the reason you buy the expansion. If you don't like the Dark Citadel, you want to play solo, don't buy it. With Dark Citadel, the Riftwalker World event, and the conversation you have with Blizzard, you get freely moving to a Lost Ark sort of game. I don't get that feeling. I think they just wanted to make something with more mechanics that is like raids with multiplayer because they basically made an MMO and they made it single player instance. You have to realize, they advertised this game as an MMO, they were making it with an open world, they were trying to go that direction, and then the game launched, and what happened? Every single person did Champion's Demise for 30 hours plus to hit level 100. So you have this huge open world and this multiplayer, and you're seeing people walk around for the first time ever in a Diablo game, and then what happened? Everyone went to a fucking instance, and then the Gauntlet came out in that instance, when people were doing the pit, and that's it. The whole game is a single player instance, and they're probably like, well, we have this whole game, we're gonna make an MMO, and we're focusing on open world where you see other people with world bosses and none of it matters. So they're like, let's add something in the game that's in line with the original vision of Diablo, so they did. And that's how we get the Dark Citadel. So I don't think they're trying to move the game to Lost Ark. I don't think they're trying to make it World of Warcraft. I think they just wanted to have some content that was maybe like the original design. I think they went the wrong direction with D4 overall. They should have focused on the open world part of it. I actually kind of like that take. I like the open world aspect of it as well. I'm not really a big fan of rerunning instances, and this is kind of across all ARPGs, but that's sort of what the ARPG genre seems to have been, which is rerunning instances and grinding them, so I understand why it's gone that way. It's probably easier to develop content that way as well. But, you know, the open world leans more into the MMO, which is contentious, so, you know, it depends upon where you sit on that enjoyment. You know, one thing I've learned about D4 is it is one of the most controversial games in what people like and what people want from the game. If you ask a big group of like 5,000 people, you're going to get a variety of opinions on where to go with its direction, what kind of content should be added, and what current state it's in. I haven't really seen that level of divide in opinions almost ever in any game. I think a lot of that is because the variety of people that play Diablo 4 is fairly wide. You have a lot of new people that came in because of both the advertising, but also because it's now cross-platform and accessible to people. It's on Game Pass now, and it's on Steam, so it's across everywhere. It's just in your face everywhere. So Diablo is something that I think a lot more people are trying. Then you also have the people that play D3, which is very different from D2, and you have D2 people that play. So there's a variety of audience in the Diablo franchise, and you can really argue that Diablo has been a franchise that has changed in almost every iteration of the game. Favorite ammo for Spiritborn? Centipede. The one thing I'll say about Spiritborn is it's hard not to enjoy it. Like, it's very easy to have a good time with Spiritborn. Almost all of the moves are fun. I think you guys are really going to like the Spiritborn, honestly. I know it's not a paladin, but the Spiritborn's actually pretty dope. I keep hearing Spiritborn's not a second druid. It's definitely not a second druid. Like, it's only thematically close to druid, but in gameplay-wise, it does not feel like I'm playing a druid at all. It feels closer to melee rogue. Per Rob, Spiritborn's 10x stronger than the rest. Maybe at Ultra in-game. I think like pretty much everyone's going to be playing Spiritborn, to be honest with you. Damage squish is real. Oh, there's definitely people that are hitting for like millions. I played with Lucky. Lucky was hitting for like, you know, multiple millions with one-shotting stuff. This is only Torment 1. This build at this stage, I'd only had like, I think this is like a 15-hour character. I know there's people that got all the way to Torment 4 and were like one-shotting everything, so I've heard that the poison build can be quite busted. It's Paladin Hammer, but no. Yeah, the poison thing's kind of like Paladin Hammer, yeah. At this point, I was playing the poison build. I tried a few different things. I tried messing around with the basic attacks. I tried messing around with the poisons. What build do you think is easy? I just want to do a new campaign. You can literally beat the campaign with any move, any build. You don't need to worry about like, what's an easy build for it? Just drag and drop literally anything and be able to beat the campaign. I want to start Druid and Spiritborn second. I really don't care if I'm not keeping up
regarding the campaign.
I mean, just play whatever you want. Like, here, the easiest way for you to hate this game is to figure out whatever the strongest build is, follow a guide, not understand the guide, literally just copy paste everything. Go straight to the end of the game as fast as you possibly can, do the content. Just play the game. Literally play
that
what
one
scales
to your level past the cap of everything else on the world here. I'm hoping they've changed that since they redid the
Remember when
tier
Barbarian could
system.
one-shot the entire game? That's fun. How does the re-tempering recipe work? It drops a score with restoration, you use it on it, and it resets your temper uses. Pretty much that easy, my friend. Does it take off the current temperance? No, it just resets your temper amount. Are you gonna play hardcore? I will be after I beat it on softcore. My plan is to get to Torment 4, figure out what build I want to play, try to beat the Dark Citadel on Torment 4. Okay, it's gonna take me a while to do it, because I'm gonna figure it out myself as I always do. Alright, once we get there, figure out the build, and we know what we want to do, then we're gonna run it in hardcore, and we're gonna try to find a partner. So I'm gonna plug it, and try to find someone who wants to play with me, and we're gonna go to Torment 4 and beat the Dark Citadel in Torment 4 in hardcore. That's my plan. This is gonna be a series where you want to have the button ready, because there's gonna be a ton of times that people lose their hardcore because someone else set up a mechanic. This is gonna be the season of raging in party chat. Like, imagine this, okay? It's party finder, so you're playing with randoms. It's hardcore, so if you die, you lose your character. And then in the Dark Citadel, if anyone picks it up, you all die. I feel like I've been scammed by D4.
Last time I did the story was probably season 1.
You know, I feel like I got scammed by No Man's Sky when it came out, but then it eventually became good, and now I don't feel scammed. Can this impression be changed with the new DLC? If you feel like you got scammed by the base, but now you think if I spend more money, to make the game good for me, then I would suggest not to do it. You already feel like you got scammed. Why would you spend more money to make your scam not a scam? I think that'd be a bad way of going at it. However, if you haven't played the game since like season 1, then that's on you because the game is different now, and the base game, in my opinion, is now worth it. Starfield definitely felt like a scam. I'll be honest, I feel like people throw the word around for scam for games too much. Really what you're saying is you don't think the game was good. A scam would be you spent the money and you literally didn't get the product, or they shut the servers down or something. Like the day before. That's a scam. No Man's Sky, when they said it's multiplayer and it's literally not, and then when people figured out it's not multiplayer, they said, well, it's just too big of a world. That's a scam. But like the game comes out and you're like, it's not as good as I wanted it to be. That's not a scam. It's just a bad game. Like I think Starfield was dog shit. Was it worth my money? No. The $300 I spent on the watch thing, I only like the watch. I think the watch, it made a better watch than I did a game. Do I feel scammed? No. I bought a bad product. Do I wish it was better? Yep. Like a scam for me is malicious intent. Like, do you think when they made Starfield, they're like, let's make a dog shit game and scam people? Probably not. Was the game bad? Yeah. And arguably, like, Starfield still had stuff you could play in it. I mean, there was content you could play. I just don't think it was that good. I give it like a 6 out of 10 at best. Because the problem is if we think bad games are all scams, then like, bro, like a third of games out there are scams. And like that just seems like if we really go out there and say 30% of all games made are scams. It's like, I don't know about that, bro. That's like saying a movie you saw is a scam. Joker 2 is a scam. No, it's just a dog shit movie that you wasted money watching. Borderlands movie is a scam. No, it's just a dog shit, poorly written movie. It's a bad product. It's not a scam. It's a bad product. I think it's really as simple as, is it fun? And I think that the expansion is fairly fun. Is it fun enough to worth $40? For me. But like, bro, I spend thousands of dollars of money on games a year because I buy all of the games because I really like games. I mean, I bought games like Space Marine and I play it for like a dozen hours and then I stopped playing it. Was it worth it because I only played it for like 12 hours? For me, yeah. Do you think you only get 10 hours out of a $60 game? Probably ain't worth it to you. Like Throne and Liberty, I spent $100 on the early access because I like Throne and Liberty, or I wanted to play a new MMO. I like MMOs. Is it worth it? No, I don't think it's worth it, but I like it. So like, I hate trying to be like, should you, is it worth $40? Is a harder argument to me than is it fun? So if the question is it worth $40? To me, it is always going to be worth $40 much more, I believe, than the average person, because I am much more willing to spend $40, $50 on a game that I play for 10 hours because I play a lot of games and I like trying new games. Is it objectively worth $40? I say no for the campaign, and I say yes for the Dark Citadel. If you do not like the Dark Citadel, or you do not want to play co-op content, I do not believe it is worth it. But that's only because I believe the campaign was disappointing. If the campaign was very good, I'd probably argue it was worth the spend just to play the campaign and continue the story if you're a Mega Diablo fan. However, because the campaign, in my opinion, was underwhelming, that puts the valuation of how much it is worth it a lot more on the mechanic side of the game, which in my opinion is primarily the Dark Citadel. Okay? That's it. All right, cheers. We out, boys. Have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. I'll take some more tips. Sure.
Tip number 1, from the beginning of the game, as soon as you have access to the Realm Walker events, you want to make sure you're going and doing these every time you see one up. The reason for that is you are going to get these opos, and what these opos do is multiple things. It's going to allow you to target additional drops you get from all monsters you slay. So the earlier you get the opos, the better, but they also give you increased experience. So you see 15% increased experience, and it does stack with potions. So it's going to help you leveling throughout your entire time of your playing the game. Plus, because Paragon level goes all the way up to 300 now, it takes a really long time to get it, having this bonus experience earlier is again going to be important. This allows you to target gold, allows you to target additional equipment, herbs, and crafting materials, or boss summoning items, or inferno compasses. So these are all really important buffs. Tip number 2, work on your mercenaries rapport. You can have one mercenary that you hire that's with you at all times, and you can have one that is a reinforcement. Both of them will be gaining rapport at the same time, so you can pick 2 different ones to double down on this. Now, the rapport system is going to give you access to skill points for your mercenary to make your mercenary stronger, but it's also going to give you caches. Look at this: legendary rings and gold, legendary rings, more legendary scattered prisms, gem fragments, distilled fear, so boss material mats, but you're also going to be getting these Pell Marks. And what you can do with the Pell Marks is go to the bartering person in the middle here, and depending upon which person you have out currently as your mercenary will change the rewards you can get here. I had the barbarian lady out before, so it gave me a defensive aspect, but now that I have the demon child out, it's going to give me, look at that, resource aspect, movement aspect, caches. So you can actually purchase these and then use these to acquire legendary aspects that you're having trouble farming. So this is another addition into the game that will help you target farm the exact aspect you're looking for. Tip number 3, once you acquire boss materials, for instance, I have distilled fear, so maybe I want to run the glacial fissure. What you want to do to be as optimized as possible is you want to make sure you're using the new party finder system to get into a party, so that way you can share rotations for boss farming. Go to find a party, you can click on boss layers, and you can search for this. This is also an easy way for you to get parties for when you go to do the Dark Citadel. Now, the Dark Citadel does require at least one other person, so get used to using the party finder system. Tip number 4, it is the easiest season it has ever been to get a mythic unique. You can actually craft one with 2 resplendent sparks, where you can guarantee that you can get 2 resplendent sparks. There is one that you can get just from doing the season journey and completing the season journey. There's one right there, as well as you get a resplendent spark for completing the Echo of Lilith. The Echo of Hatred basically is the Lilith, which is right here. Echo of Hatred, you can see completed recently. You can do this on the lower difficulties. You don't have to do this in Torment 4. I did it in Torment 1 with basically a terrible build and was able to get my resplendent spark from killing her very easily. Tip number 5, the Oppo vendor is now significantly better. You have a much higher chance of getting greater average and uniques. I just got 2 uniques just like that. So if you're missing some pieces, go ahead and give the Oppo vendor a shot. It's better this season. A lot of the previous seasons, I wouldn't blame
and yes, I did it with a cheese
number
bill.
6,
I
the
did it with
fastest
lightning ball
completion of Tree
sorcerer
Whispers in the game
in
is going to the PvP zone. Seething Abomination straight up gives you 5 just for killing them, and he doesn't have that much HP, so you kill him and you get 5. You then turn in the seeds, you get 3 more, and if you look at this, complete any event in the area, and you get 1. So that right there is actually 9, and I have 1 already. That would be my fastest way to get to 10. This is also doubly as efficient as there's 2 PvP zones, and they can both have the same one. So you can literally just kill PvP guy number 1, go to the second zone, kill the PvP Seething Abomination, and not even do the Whispers for turning in the seeds if you want. You can literally just kill 2 minions and get fully completed. Tip number 7, you can set a favorite area. You do this by right-clicking. So look at this. I set Nevix, for instance, as my favorite. So when I use my teleport, it's going to take me there. What you want to do with this, at least in my opinion, is either set the Den as your favorite, as it has the most access to everything altogether, plus your mercenaries. You can go, you can do your barters, you can change out your mercenaries, or there is a secondary option, which is Sarengar, which has access to everything, including the pit and a tier difficulty changer. These are the ones that are probably going to be your primary favorites, but you know, you could really set it to any one of these for any reason. Tip number 8, though this is a test server, so you don't see all this filled out already. All of your renown is already going to be completed if you've done them in the previous seasons. However, in the expansion, we have a new region, so don't forget to max out the renown of the new region so you can get your 4 more free Paragon points, as well as an increase in max oboes, since oboes are better this season. But really, it's just you're going to want these 4 more Paragon points. Tip number 9, you're going to notice that when you destroy a normal legendary item, this is what you get for salvage materials. However, salvaging greater affix items will give you 10x of these materials. So you'll notice I got 10 for that greater. For standard one, I'm only getting 1. For this reason, if you're worried when you get a legendary, I'm like, wow, I'm really not getting that many materials, you get significantly more materials from salvaging greater affix. This is a test build, however. I heard they might change some of these material acquisitions, but I'm sure greater affixes will still give you more materials than the non-greater affix salvages. Tip number 10, if you have a really good item you like, but you have no more temper rerolls, for instance. Look at this. This item has reached its temper reroll. There is a new item in the game, and this item is going to allow you to reset your temper reroll. Look at this item right here, Scroll of Restoration, used to restore all tempering charges on an item. So I can use that right there. The item has been used, and now I can go in here and I can re-temper my item just like that. So make sure you're getting these scrolls. These scrolls can be got through the Dark Citadel, which is sort of the weekly in-game raid that is located right here. It will walk you through this as you go through the campaign. It will point you in that direction. You can see you can get a weekly cache here that resets on, I believe it's every Tuesday. However, my understanding is these are also a rare drop throughout the world as well. They mentioned these scrolls are not only locked behind the Citadel. So if you are a solo-only player, you can still get your hand on them, just not as consistently. You're also guaranteed a scroll through the actual season journey. So if you're going through the season journey to get your Resplendent Spark for the Mythic, you're guaranteed to at least get one here in this tier as well. Tip number 11, if you're having problems getting certain legendary aspects and affixes that you need, go to the Karas Bazaar. Right here at this Spirit, you can use the Undercity. Now, the Undercity is a game mode that allows you to target farm rewards that you want through tributes. You will collect tributes through just playing throughout the game. You can put them in here and then click Bargain, and this will allow you to further customize legendary rewards that you need in order to get basically exactly what you're looking for. For instance, skill tag ranks. Legendary armor will always possess at least one rank of a skill tag, so this will allow you to target that, or maybe you need your class uniques, for instance, generic uniques, or even chaotic uniques. So you have all sorts of ways in which you can find the items that you're missing. And the bonus tip, there are Twitch drops, meaning you're going to be able to get free cosmetics just from watching a Twitch stream, which means you can go to some of these Twitch stream, like mine if you would like. I will have these active. You can open up the tab, click mute, minimize it, and come back in a few hours and get your Twitch drops. Make sure you link your Twitch account with your Battle.net account, and then it will register.
I really took way too long to check
multiple
in
weeks
on
of this. So
these
Sorcerer, Necromancer, Barbarian, Rogue, Druid, and then there will be a support and streamer one you can get through subs, but this is a paywall, so don't worry about the support and streamer program. You can get these ones for free. That's just some basic tips to get you started. Hope you enjoy the new season.
Missed the first wave because they end tomorrow at, do they say time zone? 12:59 EDT. Okay, so I gotta get all this done by 1 p.m. Oh, I'm not even gonna be home for that shit. I gotta go to the doctor. Well, I'll try to figure something out. Okay. I don't even know if it's going to make a big difference if I play Diablo 4 this season, considering I'm going Eternal Realm. If I do go seasonal, it's just going to be for my Spiritborn, and at that point, do I stay on... It's a conundrum.
Ladies, gentlemen, and Haragrabal, latest when it comes to Season 6 and the Vessel of Hatred expansion, one of the biggest new additions to the game is a brand new evergreen activity, one that is meant to be useful and included in your journey playing the game, all the way from efficient leveling completely up until your build and character is essentially near perfected and completed. This activity is extremely fast-paced once you are inside. There are no real breaks in the middle other than like in between runs entirely, and it is relatively easy to take part in once you realize how it works and how to do it properly. The main thing, though, really is the rewards. This has the potential to be one of the highest rewarding activities in the game for the time spent, but that potential is somewhat gated behind specific items, which are called tributes. These alter the way that an Undercity run will work. It's set to a specific wing, which is one of its variations. Each wing has its own aesthetics and its own unique end boss, which are, by the way, some of the coolest bosses in the game, so that does make a difference. But these also add bonus rewards at the end for a successful run, ranging from bonus experience to even a chance at mythic uniques dropping from this activity. They also give you access to the bargain option, which lets you exchange gold or materials to guarantee some results for end rewards, such as guaranteed skill ranks on armor or passive skill ranks on amulets. Essentially, this just gives you a method of target farming for specific affix archetypes on gear, which means long-term, this will be an extremely sought-after activity to accomplish the goals that most players will have at various points in the game. All that said, let's dive into everything you need to know about this activity to get the most out of it, including why you really want to do it to begin with, by discussing the rewards in a bit more detail later on. First things first, and let's talk about the activity itself. Karas Undercity is unlocked through the Vessel of Hatred campaign itself. You will get a look into the sort of area of this as part of the campaign quite early, and afterwards it will unlock the side quest chain that properly actually unlocks the Undercity as a permanent activity. You can engage with the Undercity before you finish the questline, but the tribute system isn't unlocked until afterwards, which is what a large portion of the actual rewards for this activity are tied to. So if you want to do Undercity, I heavily recommend going through this questline before you go too deep into it for that exact reason, especially as it will bring you through the Undercity, through the questline, through each wing, and each boss individually, just sort of as part of the process. Moving on then, what should you expect to find inside? Well, once you enter, a timer will start playing on the top right of your screen, and a bar with different tiers will show up nearby. This bar represents your reward level. You gain points towards filling this bar by killing any enemy within the activity. but you get large chunks of points specifically from the braziers that you see on your minimap. You walk over and interact with these, and one of a couple of things will happen. Either they will spawn a bunch of enemies, and they will all be marked on the minimap, meaning that you have to kill every one of them for the brazier to count as complete, or it will spawn a bunch of enemies, but only mark like 1 or 2 elites on your minimap, in which case your objective is just to kill those 2 marked enemies, and then it will be counted as complete, and it will give you the points towards the rewards. This will be marked on your map the moment you enter each floor, all the braziers, and these are your main objectives to clear out before you move on to the next floor. You can always move to the next floor of your run whenever you want to, even if you haven't done any braziers, the second that you reach the portal, but if you leave the braziers undone, you just won't reach maximum reward. As you gain reward points, you will go up to different tiers of reward from 1 to 4. Tier 1 is required for a successful run to begin with. Everything above that just gives increased rewards at the end of the activity. The other main thing to be aware of hidden here are the afflicted enemies. There are afflicted regular enemies that give super tiny amounts of bonus time to the timer when you kill them. Lesser afflicted are elites that you can find usually in packs of 2, and generally these will give you around 8 seconds each by default, with an extra bump of time if you defeat both of the ones in a pack together. Then there are also greater afflicted, and these are actually just essentially bosses that you'll occasionally find within the activity, and these have a ton of health but reward around 30 seconds of bonus time when you kill them by default. There are also afflicted structures that you can find on occasion, which give bonus time when you destroy them too. The numbers that I've given you here, though, are a little bit hazy, though, because a big part of the tribute and bargain system is that it will change both the base timer and the time regained from afflicted enemies. But these are their sort of base values. Unlike the braziers, the afflicted enemies will only show up on your minimap if you get within a certain range of them. So generally, your path to each floor will be defined to begin with by the braziers, and then you will adjust it to pick up any afflicted enemies that you see along the path. Anytime that you can create a situation where you are both completing a brazier event and killing afflicted enemies is the most efficient way to tackle this activity. If you can do that, you should do that. It'll make your runs better. This both progresses your rewards and gives you additional time towards the run at the same time. Generally speaking, if you complete every brazier that exists within your run, including the greater brazier that will take a bit more killing, you will reach full rewards within that run. As well, each time that you progress to a new floor, you also gain around 30 seconds added back onto your timer. When you reach the end of your run, it will culminate in a boss fight floor. The floor with the boss will turn the timer off, so that no longer matters. You no longer have time pressure. Now it is simply kill the boss or be killed by them. Can you defeat the boss or not? If you die, you simply respawn and can do it again, but the boss will obviously be at full health. But if you kill the boss, the run will be complete. You get all of your rewards, including everything from your tribute and your bargain too. It's also worth mentioning that the treasure goblins that spawn in here are unique enemies called portal pranksters. They cause a bit of chaos, but if you can kill them, they will add an extra chest of loot at the end of the Undercity activity. And this is actually one of the best ways to get tributes if you're looking for more to make your Undercity runs better. And you probably should be looking for more of these for reasons that we will be talking about in a moment. As well, like the Artificer's Pit activity, once you are inside Terra's Undercity, you cannot change any of your skill points or your Paragon points, your gear or your class specialization options, and you cannot leave the area until the run is done unless you want the zone to just shut itself down and close early. That said, now that we have dove fully into the activity itself, let's talk about the tributes and bargain system and how this modifies the activity and rewards. There are a fair number of tributes available, and these have a drop chance from pretty much everything that you can do in the game once you have unlocked them by finishing the quest line for the Undercity to begin with. For the most part, these can be split into 4 major categories: experience gain, legendary item drops, rune drops, and unique drops. To show examples of one at each rarity, with rarities of course deciding the difficulty of the run, the first is the Tribute of Growth. This gives bonus experience at the end of a run. It has the same starting time as default, but it does give you a 15% time bonus penalty from both floor transitions and killing afflicted enemies, as well as a 20% penalty to potion drop percentage as well. Then there is the Tribute of Harmony. This gives you multiple runes as a guaranteed drop reward at the end of the run, and this is the best source of farming runes in the game for the most part, but this also reduces the starting time of the actual event to 75 seconds. It adds a 25% time bonus penalty from afflicted enemy killing and a 30% potion drop chance penalty as well. Then there is the Tribute of Radiance, and this gives guaranteed ancestral legendary drops at the end of the run, and of course ancestral items are going to be a really big part of the end game this time around especially, and the cost for this reward is going down to a 60-second start timer, 35% time bonus penalty from afflicted and floor change, and the potion drop chance goes down by 40% as well. The final tribute then is Ascendance. This gives you multiple uniques at the end of your run with an increased chance of mythic uniques as well. This is the toughest of all of these, of course, to actually complete. It gives you only 45 seconds as a starting timer, 50% time bonus penalty on the afflicteds and the floor change, and 50% potion drop chance penalty too, which makes the actual survival harder as well. So this creates just a significantly harder run, but does offer some pretty hefty rewards in response. And it's worth noting there is also ones that will give you Torment boss actual summon material drops once you reach the Torment difficulties as well. Then we have the bargains, and this is a much more varied system that lets you have a reasonable amount of control over one part of the items that drop at the end at the cost of either currency or resources depending on what they have decided the value of the bargain is, such as guaranteed passive skill ranks on an amulet being super expensive, but there are quite a few of these, and that one is obviously very good. Bargains don't seem to make the run harder or easier as well. They only change the actual rewards that you get at the end to give you more control over what you get. Essentially, to put this whole thing simply, Undercity, if you have the tribute that you want and that can afford the bargain that you're after as well, has a high chance of giving you a good chunk of genuinely useful equipment for yourself and your build and upgrades for what you're using. It lets you target farm general gear in a way that most activities don't. It lets you target farm specific affixes on legendaries or even specific uniques for your class or otherwise, and the only real question is whether you are strong enough to complete the run on your chosen difficulty tier with the tributes. This activity is relatively simple to grasp at a glance, and it has a lot of reward for engaging in it. So I highly recommend that you at least get started on the quest line so you can unlock it all if you haven't done so yet, because this is totally worth doing. That just about does it for today, then, everyone. An introduction and guide to the Cuirassed Undercity activity new to the game with the Vessel of Hatred expansion. I hope you've enjoyed this, and hopefully it helps you out in Season 6 and beyond. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.
fell for one of the largest baits by Blizzard of all time, and this one was about the expansion, Diablo 4's Vessel of Hatred. So a while back when they were teasing the Vessel of Hatred, they had done a campfire chat, which is Diablo 4's dev chat, where they go up there and kind of say what's to come, what are they currently working on, etc. But during that campfire chat, there was a leak or pseudo-leak, basically a preview of something that was to come in the game. In fact, I did a whole video about this called Did the Blizzard Just Have a Major Diablo 4 Leak, in which we went over some of these new items. Now, in this video, I show, did you see this? Plus 200% damage to angels and demons. Now, part of this is like, okay, plus 200% damage to demons makes sense, but plus 200% damage to angels is a weird thing to have on there. Now, you might just think, all right, well, this was just flavor text or, you know, a bit of an additional meme on there or something like that. But during the Q&A portion from that campfire chat, this was how they responded here.
So if you have additional details, there's a lot of questions related to one of the mythic uniques, and it's additive damage to demons and angels specifically. I don't know if you want to talk about.
I will confirm that is the wording on the effect.
So, you know, everyone's kind of, you know, hamming it up there, giggling a bit about it. It's like, oh, well, we can't talk about that. You know, oh, that's, yep, I can confirm that's on there. It's like, okay, all right, so it's something. All right, now before I go any further, I should tell you why this isn't, I'm not going to be having major Diablo 4 expansion story spoilers in here. I'm going to be talking about related to the campaign spoilers, so this is your fair warning now before I dig into this. And I also want to say this now as a prefacent for all this, a prefix, a preemptive, I'm running out of pre-words here, okay? Basically, Diablo 4 is in its best state it's ever been in. The game is legitimately really fun right now. Spearboard is quite good. The progression feels better. I'm enjoying the game a lot. I did 26-hour live stream, had a great time. So I'm going to say this right now for the people that are wondering, like, how's the game? It's actually quite good, in my opinion. It's quite good. This is, it was my opinion on the early access, but I was kind of like, okay, well, I only played it a few days. We'll see how it goes. Played it again on launch. I'm in like Torment 2 already first day. Blasted, feeling good. They fixed a lot of like material acquisition issues that was in the early access press release, stuff like that. So I'm actually having a good time. I want to say the positive thing first before we get into the absolute bait that occurred. Okay, so with that out of the way, yeah, here we go. We have the damage to angels there on the thing. They're all like, oh, damage to angels. The expansion's coming, maybe. Play through the story not once, but twice. And not only that, but I played through all of the Diablos in a row in order to get myself, you know, up to date on the lore because of this. And I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna, you know, let's see where the lore could fit in. And there's actually some tie-in from Diablo 3 related to the lore of the Nephilim are becoming a problem. Like the angels are kind of not liking them, you know. And then there's Anarius and Lilith. And Lilith, maybe she's kind of right. So like you're thinking about all of this, and then not only that, but on the same item, it says slaughter enemies to briefly steal Lilith's favor. So it's like, okay, well, hey, maybe Lilith was right. Maybe we choose to go there. We all that. So how with all this, okay, and all these little like teasers and things about us versus angels, and maybe there's something in the story. How many angels do you think that we run into in the campaign, either good or bad? Let's just, how many angels do you think? Ready? I'm gonna give you a few seconds. 0. There's no fucking angels in this entire game. On top of it, how many of those 0 angels do you think we end up fighting? It's 0 once again. And how many of those are mobs, not just story? It's 0. You get the point? An angel doesn't show up literally anywhere in any of the story. So I thought back to this item, and I'm kind of like, wait a minute, you know, what the fuck? Now, I can actually understand if maybe this was in the base game, because there's actually angels in the base game, but in the expansion, they don't even show. I mean, there's not even Anarius who's on your side where you can make the argument you don't even like him. You know what I mean? And maybe you do want to stab him, and maybe this, you know, it's a flavor text. It's just, you don't even need the flavor text. There's literally no angels anywhere in the expansion. So now I think I understand the laughing a little bit. It's not, oh, we're laughing, oh, you know, wait till you see the expansion. It's gonna be good, man. You guys, it's a giggle because it's actually a giant troll. Like, you could just say 200% damage to demons, because that's what it is. Like, there's actually 0 reason to have bonus damage to angels. It doesn't make any. Maybe it's a looking into the future kind of thing. Because again, you know, minor story spoiler here. The story isn't exactly complete. It ends without, really, in my opinion, a satisfactory conclusion to even what's going on in the story itself. So maybe, and I've seen someone point this out, maybe what they're going to do is drop storyline like within the season, where it's like, okay, season 7, new story, season 8, new story. Maybe it's like a Destiny type of thing, World of Warcraft type thing, like they're adding onto it as it goes. I actually really hope that is the situation, because in my personal opinion, I don't want the conclusion of the story to be another expand. Like, we need to conclude the story we're telling on this portion of the story. Which brings me to another point. There's another bait, actually, that sort of happened that I was kind of like, well, what the fuck is that, too? So, again, another story. I'm giving you guys a million spoiler warnings in this, because the game is, you know, only 2 days out, and I don't want to bother with the comments. Oh my god, you're spoiling. Yes, here's another spoiler for you, warning again. But you guys remember this from the teaser trailer here? This is like Mephisto is you can see, you know, Nero's in the middle, and there's like Mephisto's growing huge. And I saw this and was like, oh shit, like maybe the Dark Citadel raids or something, or like each one of Mephisto's arms, like we're gonna fight this giant Mephisto thing here, okay? Like there's this huge mech warrior boss or something. All right, you actually know what this is? You want to know what this is? I actually don't know what it is, because it's not in the game. It doesn't, I don't know. This is literally from the ending cinematic. They show this, but that's actually not what ends up happening to Mephisto at all. So I have no idea what that has to do with literally anything. So you see that, and you're like, oh shit, you get Hyperfix Expansion. Angels, Hyperfix Expansion, both of them don't happen in the game. So I have a lot of really positive things to say. I actually think, like I said earlier, I'm going to reface this again, because this is just about a bait that happened for the expansion. The expansion's actually good. Spiritborn's actually good. Mechanics are good. Progression's good. I'm having a fun time. Log in, boys. Okay, I'm seeing pretty positive reception from everywhere. But this cinematic bait and this Angels bait and sort of like this story bait that happens, the shit literally doesn't exist in the game. There's 2 arguments that can be made, both of which I do not like. One of which is this is a philosophical cinematic in which Neyrelle is being succumbed by Mephisto, and Mephisto is growing, and that is what this is supposed to represent. Okay, well, kind of don't like that. I thought it was an actual thing, like a physical representation of the Mephisto we're gonna fight or showcase or anything. But that's one argument that legitimately can be made through the story. The second argument to be made, since again, this is the cinematic they show when the game concludes, but this actually isn't what happens to Mephisto because of reasons in the story that I'll try not to spoil here. But yeah, that's not him. So if that's the case, and then this cinematic that was the preview trailer cinematic that was used to showcase and sell this expansion is actually the teaser for the next expansion, which is the second expansion. So I really don't like that one. So in conclusion, my feeling is good job on the on rebalancing the power structure. Good job on making the game fun. Good job on the Dark Citadel. Dark Citadel was easily the first thing that came out where it's like you did it for a shot. You don't have to rebalance or change anything. You just did it. Good job. But like, please do not when you're selling the expansion or something. Please don't bait shit that literally isn't even in the game. Like you don't have to do that. The expansion's good. Like the expansion's just good. You really don't need to do that. So like I kind of think that that's like in a learning lesson. Please don't do that on further expansions. I was not very happy when I found out Angels was literally a troll, and that Mephisto thing has basically nothing to do with the game other than a philosophical argument. But pretty funny. The more I thought about it, the more I'm like, wait a minute. This kind of doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's about it. I thought it was funny and wanted to share. If y'all want to come on by, you can. There's free cosmetic drops going on right now. And of course, there is macro. I'm not going to call them microtransactions. There's macrotransactions for most people gift subs. You can give a horse in the game. If for some reason, it's just an excuse to support the streamer. If you want to do that, you can. It's super expensive and not worth it, but I'll be alive. All right, have a great day.
Ladies, gentlemen, and hurrah, the latest Vessel of Hatred is now officially released and playable for everyone who got this new expansion for Diablo 4, and even if you haven't, Season 6 is live for all players of the game. With this, every person playing the game has a couple of main predictable goals. A lot of people have the primary goal this season of just enjoying the new campaign on their first time through it, but outside of that, of course, is the usual seasonal objective of how to gain power as quickly as possible, and while there are pretty standard ways that we pretty much talked about a number of times in the past, things like just an understanding of how and when to upgrade your gear, all that kind of stuff is just sort of the same story as usual this season. Not much has actually swapped up. That said, there are a couple of things that are new this season that can completely adjust how we look at power gain through different sections of the game, especially with this game now reshuffled a little bit, so that maximum level it is just now 60. It just sort of essentially means that the start of the end game is maximum level, rather than a much deeper and further on progression goal like level 100 was. The first thing that I want to talk about then is Murmuring Obols and the Purveyor of Curiosities vendor. This vendor lets you trade obols for a randomly rolled item of a slot of your choice. This is not a new mechanic, but the way that it does its rolls has shifted significantly. It is now an extremely consistent source of targeted unique items. Specifically, on average during the review build access that we had before release, I got around 1 unique per 400 to 500 obols that I spent, regardless of which slot it was that I was gambling on. This was how I got Rod of Kepaleke on Spearborn at level 54, and how I got a new one of Rod of Kepaleke at level 60 as well, so I could have one at 750 item power. It's how I got my unique helmets for Spearborn, and I even got Tyrael's Might from pure obol gambling on chess pieces, though unfortunately I lost the clip of that happening, but it did happen. And that's just an example of how much higher and better the actual drop rates have been from the obol gambling vendor in general in this season, and hopefully moving forward too. I generally wouldn't worry about using this too much until you hit level 60. You're swapping out gear too much, and the obol costs are a bit high compared to the speed that you'll be going at that point, but especially as you hit level 60 itself, and you're starting to upgrade to 750s in every slot that you can to unlock Torment, then once you are in Torment and have access to Ancestral items dropping too, this is a very good thing to make use of. That's when you should really just be spending the hell out of your Murmuring Obols to target specific slots. There are also some really good ways to get Murmuring Obols this season, including just obviously the normal Helltide event spam, but also the actual Realm Walkers and the seasonal events tied to that. The mini dungeons that happen afterwards sometimes have events inside that can give you hundreds of obols in a single go, so Realm Walkers are also good for farming Murmuring murmuring opals. Then it's also worth mentioning that with these murmuring opals, when you target specific slots, you can actually still just get a bunch of targeted legendary aspects too, because the legendary aspects that you get will always be locked to the type of aspects that can be applied to the slot that you are purchasing. This means that you can just farm a lot of different legendary aspects of different types to get higher quality versions when you salvage them in your Codex of Power. But by far the main use of these murmuring opals and these new drop rates is uniques. Does your build require maybe a specific unique to come online? Maybe you are a druid desperately searching for Tempest Roar for your storm build, or Earthbreaker for your landslide build, or more realistically, you're not a druid, you're playing Spiritborn, and you want Rod of Kapaleke because it's ridiculously strong. There are only two unique quarterstaffs in the entire game. The normal target farm for Rod of Kapaleke is Duriel and Andariel as ladder bosses, the hardest of the available ladder summoning bosses that we currently have, and the ones that are the hardest to gather the materials for to summon them to begin with. But instead, it's really easy to instead just sort of gamble for this item with opals, because the opal conversion rate to uniques is really, really solid this season. That's what I've been trying to get across. And because there are only two unique quarterstaffs in the game, when you roll the quarterstaff slot at this vendor and it gives you a unique, it has a 50-50 chance of being this specific one. As simple as that. It makes it really, really consistent, very reliable. You can apply this to any class in any slot. However, obviously, the less options there are, the better. Like if you want Azur Wrath as a sorcerer, it's literally the only non-mythic unique sword that you can have drop, so it's easy to farm using this method. All that stuff said, it's not the most complex concept. Mostly, I just wanted to make sure that you are all aware just how rewarding the system has been made, and the system is just so good if you take use of it, and how much you can get from it as soon as you enter the very start of the endgame, especially in Season 6. And hopefully, this will keep the way that it is moving into future seasons too, because I think it's just a good thing. It's a nice way to actually make the opals feel worth collecting. The second major thing then on the note of the season itself is the Realm Walkers and the seasonal mechanics sort of as a whole. The main thing that this ends up giving you are the seeding opals, the actual consumables, but these, well, not giving power in themselves, do things like give you bonus crafting materials while active, bonus socketables, including runes, which help you make rune words, which can be quite powerful too, bonus equipment just straight up is one of the opal options too, or even bonus boss summoning materials, which will then turn into more equipment when you obviously go and kill the bosses. This is super valuable in itself, these seeding opals, and having any single one of these active also gives you a 15% bonus to experience gain, which does also help just generate raw levels while you're under 60, but also it helps you generate paragon points while you're above level 60. So having one of these active at all times is generally the ideal way to go. The other main thing through this is that this system does actually have a reputation system tied to it, as well as the seasonal mechanics have been doing pretty consistently recently. At more different stages of the actual reputation, then you will get little gift boxes full of little goodies, and these will make you even more powerful as well. Things like legendaries, things like uniques, more bonus opals, tempering manuals, and even just higher tier materials and some ancestrals and the higher reputation tier rewards as well. So there's quite a lot to gain from this system as a whole, honestly. As for how to get the reputation, it's pretty simple. You get some as a base for defeating enemies in the active Realm Walker event zones whenever it is up, but when you use any of these seeding opal consumables, it also gives you a bonus effect that just makes any enemy that you kill with it active give you reputation points. This makes it so any other thing that you want to be doing while you have a seeding opal active will just make progress towards increased reputation levels, and so of course also more rewards. The other thing that I should mention is the actual ways that you can spend your smoldering ashes this season, which are the rewards that you get in the free battle pass track, so everyone gets them to spend on upgrades that will affect your character on the seasonal realm. The obvious ones that have always existed are things like increased monster XP, but there are three this season essentially that are very good for our purposes here. The first is when you roll for opals at the gambling vendor, you have just a raw chance to get a second item every single time. That's a second roll, a second chance at unique every time you go. Anytime you have a chance at a second item, that just literally means that your opals are giving you more for each amount that you spend. Then there's also one that increases your sacrum reputation gain whenever you get reputation, which obviously means that you can fill the reputation track faster, get more of the gift boxes faster, and the rewards from this too. There's also one that gives you a chance to get a bonus seeding opal whenever you open the opal chest at the end of the Realm Walker event, so those obviously help with this as well. That pretty much does it for today, everyone. Just your day one update to the things that have changed this season specifically, or are new in general, that will help you gain power very rapidly, very early on. The Murmuring Opal vendor may not be a loot cave per se, but their sack of goodies might as well be a loot cave with how much value you can get out of it very easily. Then of course the seeding opals and the Realm Walkers and the reputation tied to that system too, with all the rewards that it gives. There are of course expansion specific things that will come into play for power gain a bit later in your journey, and we'll talk about those too later in another video, but these are the two major and easy bonus sources of power that you can take advantage earlier in your journey this time around. I hope you've enjoyed this video then, and hopefully this helped you out on your continued adventure through Season 6 and Vessel of Hatred in Diablo 4. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. Josh, Totten, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye. Ladies, gentlemen, and horadrim of all ages, it has been a momentous week in the Diablo 4 community, of course, with the release of the Vessel of Hatred expansion and the beginning of Season 6 alongside it. As usual, there's never really a dull moment here when we're talking behind the scenes. Today is far from an exception, as we have multiple issues as well as fixes for a few of these that came out from developers in this first couple of days since launch, and some general things to just be aware of and possibly avoid that are still taking root. So without further ado, let's break down what's going on around Diablo 4 at the moment. First up, the initial release of the Vessel of Hatred expansion wound up delayed by quite a few hours, just over 5 hours from the predetermined release time, the actual pre-start time. This was unfortunate, especially for those who were waiting up in places like Europe to play it when it came out, even though it was the middle of the night for them, and they either ended up having to just sort of go to sleep or wait just a really painful amount of time afterwards. Personally, I went to bed at 8 p.m. so I could wake up at 2 a.m. and start blasting the expansion like a normal person. In any case, the game did eventually go live, of course, and upon doing so has gone off without any major hitches. Of course, there are bugs, there are issues, but I mean there's no like bug preventing 90% of the player base from logging in when it launched. There wasn't like 3-hour queues or anything like that. That said, let's move on to now specifically things that have either been acknowledged and fixed before diving into the things that, haven't. First up, if you bought Vessel of Hatred but don't have access to Spiritborn, you should check what you actually bought. On some platforms, it seems it was possible to buy the upgrade from standard expansion to ultimate expansion without ever owning the standard expansion pre-purchase itself. And so a bunch of people accidentally did that and purchased the upgrade without buying the expansion in the first place, which resulted in them just getting literally nothing. thing that they could actually use, being unable to access the class or the region. Aside from that, you also need to own Vessel of Hatred on the specific platform you are playing on. Some people bought the expansion on Battle.net but are playing the game on Xbox because cross progression does exist, but at least as of this moment, you cannot actually do that with the expansion. The Spiritborn and the expansion content will only be available on the platform that you have purchased them on. This one is, I imagine, a little bit unintentional and will hopefully be fixed at some point, but it is a bit muddy. Then, as the day went on, some issues cropped up with players seemingly randomly losing access to Vessel of Hatred content, despite already doing stuff within the region and doing the story and playing the class, so clearly they had it unlocked. This was a confirmed bug that the dev said was a thing that resulted in Hotfix 1, which existed mostly just to fix this specific issue. After that, we had a proper patch referred to as 2.0.2a, fully and completely just stability improvements. That's actually quite important right now, as since the expansion, including for some people in the PTR and review build even, the game has been quite literally far less stable. For a long period, the just sort of world server was lagging out for about 30 seconds or so in very noticeable 15-minute intervals, literally like at 12 o'clock, 12:15, 12:30, 12:45, very on the dot on those times. This seems to have now calmed down after this update. These random lag spikes aren't really happening as just sort of scheduled anymore. As well, there are a number of new crashing issues on top of what many players are theorizing to be a memory leak that has developed after the expansion was added. This has led to a lot of crashing problems for a number of players. I did suffer from these myself on the PTR version of this patch, and the best fix that I found as a result of this, and can offer to anyone suffering from this problem, is to specifically turn off ray tracing in the graphics and turn off the frame generation setting in your graphics options too. These two things are the highest taxing options compared to the relative gain they give you in performance, and for whatever reason, turning them off changed my game from crashing every 2 minutes or more to crashing only once in a 14-hour session, which is much more manageable. Then yesterday we had our second hotfix of the season already, this one with a few bug fixes, but also a bit of resource rebalancing, which is interesting to see this quickly, specifically making it so bosses and elite enemies have just generally much higher drop rates of both bundled herbs themselves and also angel breath specifically, as potion upgrading was really difficult for the first couple of days. This should help solve that problem, however, and make it easier to come by these resources in the future. As well, on top of this, there was an issue where whenever you changed zones, the game would just track and pin the Citadel Community Challenge weekly quest. This was minorly irritating, but not a big deal, but it has now been removed anyways. Past that, just a fix for a progression blocker, and the classic various stability improvements lying here. Overall, the dev team is working pretty around the clock, it seems, really trying to get what they can done when they can, and they are definitely making a dent in the issues, but there's still quite a ways to go here. On the note of things that are acknowledged but not fixed before the expansion launched, it was announced that a number of items would simply not be available to drop in the game on release. Specifically, 4 of them: the Shroud of False Death and the Agile Wolf Druid legendary aspect. I'm not exactly sure why for those two, but Azurath, the unique sword, and Frostburn, the unique glove specifically, had issues with the stat switch that was done to the game as a whole, where in the PTR and on the review build that we had, the ancestral version of these two items was specifically just having obscenely high damage rolls on the lucky hit to deal damage effects. Like Masterworking and Greater Affix applied, they were well over 10,000 damage per proc, even over 15,000 in some cases, when in reality they should be capped significantly lower than that, just because the actual amounts they were getting with this actual mistake became the engine of a lot of damage and potential breaking things due to just being lucky hit builds and just not having their own numbers squished the way that other things have. The devs were unable to fix this issue before launch, so the items just now will not exist or drop at all until around patch 2.0.3, which is when we are expected to see these items return. This is bad news, of course, for anyone who desperately wanted any of these items, but it's good news for people who want Fists of Fate, as this means there's currently just one less pair of gloves in the unique drop pool for gloves, especially the Beast and Ice specific drop pool, so when you farm Beast and Ice, you just have a higher chance of getting Fists of Fate. So that does actually sort of work out to be a bonus for a large number of players as well. That said, there are a few more issues we're talking about that have not been fixed or even really acknowledged actively yet. The first and most possibly damaging to a lot of players is the Varshan ladder boss fight. Varshan is a normal part of his fight can gain barrier when he hits with auto attacks under certain conditions. Normally this is fine, honestly, but for whatever reason, in this season and with the expansion patch applied, his barrier is insanely overtuned. It's almost like it's the one part of him they forgot to stat squish. So if he gains his barrier, he will become basically unkillable while it's active until it naturally falls off when he enters another phase by summoning his bonus elites. This has just made him a nightmare to kill for most players, and my best recommendation really is if you really do need to do Varshan, if you need to get a unique from him specifically to get your build online, do it at least one difficulty tier lower than you would do something like Gridwar. He's not necessarily mechanically harder by any means, but he just gains so much effective health from this and just time being alive from the barrier. It's not worth the time or effort to kill him, especially if he's stacking torment stacks on you, unless you know you can obviously still manage to blast him down in a minute or less really, hence lowering the difficulty to make this happen. Other than that, there have also been issues reported of items dropping for classes that should not receive them. A very prominent example of this is that the Shard of Varathiel unique one-handed sword is dropping very frequently from Infernal Hordes for Spiritborn players, despite Spiritborn being unable to use one-handed swords, or swords of any kind, or even one-handed weapons for that matter either. The same happens with the Butcher who drops his Butcher's Cleaver one-handed axe unique. However, this is much more explainable as just he drops the unique that he drops when he dies without exception, whereas Shard of Varathiel could very clearly be replaced in drops with a unique that was actually usable by the class. The developers have acknowledged that this is an issue that they are aware of and they are looking into, but we've not been given a specific timeline on a fix. I've also heard some reports that some of the bargains in Undercity are a bit finicky, not working all the time. The tributes themselves are fine, which are the main reward, so that's what's important, but the bargains ask you to pay an extra fee for an extra bonus. Sometimes, however, the bonus is simply not taking effect, and when that happens, they can just be a pure waste of resources. The point of this section here, with it being inconsistent as it is essentially if you interact with the bargain side of the system specifically, be prepared that this is a possibility. I'm not saying don't use bargains, I'm not saying it's a waste of time or anything, I'm saying treat it as if there is a success chance rather than being a guaranteed reward, at least for now, because that's how it feels at the moment. One final thing then, to do with the guaranteed resplendent spark sources. Each season, there are a lot of people who have killed the Echo of Lilith boss for the first time this season and not received a resplendent spark. There are also a lot of people who have done the same kill and have received a resplendent spark. Word from the developers is that this is intended to give you a spark this season, so if you did this activity and did not get a spark, it is part of a known bug that is being worked on. This will be fixed in an upcoming patch, and a resplendent spark will be given retroactively to all of the players who didn't get one but did kill her. This just about does it for now then, everyone. There are other bugs and issues going around, but those are the main ones that have been making a splash, either by being fixed already or just by being a big enough deal that it's worth talking about and warning you about a little bit before you do something like spend your malignant hearts immediately upon reaching a new torment difficulty, only to find out that Varshan's barrier does what it do. Or maybe you're looking to take advantage of Frostburn being out of the game for a bit to help you actually pick up a good Fist of Fate a bit easier. Either way, this is what's going on. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Todd, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.
Naturally, for the part of the art that's going to be holding the sword instead of the crown, I'm going to be using my hands, so I'm just taking these rough outlines. They will be replaced with my talons and the other cybernetics. My head's hurting all of a sudden. How long has it been since I took my meds? Let me just look at something. BRB. Okay, I just hydrated, and unfortunately I'm still not feeling 100%. I could be taking my pills, but I want to take those closer to bed so I can sleep through the night. I might actually have to tag out shortly. Let's at least try to finish this outline. Hang on. Where was I? And before anybody says anything, I know there have been requests for me to do some React material, whether that is to Mortal Kombat 1, that is still on the docket. I have the video bookmarked with all the animalities that I'm aware of. However, things like the Pokemon leak, the Terra leak as you were, I can't cover that. I don't want to risk the fucking Nintendo money cock. The lawyers are too much. And nothing I've seen has been forced down yet, but I don't want to take that gamble. I already get copy stricken on damn near every other stream, so I'll let somebody else take that gamble. I might have some commentary on it afterwards, but for now, let's just suffice it to say Game Freak has earned the freak in their name. And I will leave it at that. Actually, no, something very good that I'd seen from that leak was the box art templates. So that's hopefully going to crater the secondhand cardboard market for the retro games. I never saw the value in keeping the old cardboard packages when I was a kid. My sister still has one of hers from Crystal, but I didn't keep any of mine. I'd like to have them now, and it might not cost an arm and a leg, courtesy of the leak. Obviously, the doxing elements where certain employees had their private information get out in the wild. I don't approve of that. I was memeing the other day when I was saying Helix Bless, but there's a difference between praising the leaked beta info and praising the docs. I'm interested in the behind-the-scenes stuff, not people's personal data. Okay, unfortunately I wasn't able to get the Ned Stark frame that I was hoping for in high res. So what I should be able to do is just squeeze these together. Actually, hang on, before I do that. I want to get more of these finger details. Ugh. Sorry, that's my stomach. I should be full. I've already eaten. Clearly my intestines and I have differing opinions. I'll keep it down. I'll get my sleep. I'll go to the doctor tomorrow. The shit will flow. Figuratively and literally. Okay, that'll give me enough info for when I'm trying to extrapolate onto my hands, or my hands onto it, so. Maintain the contiguous alignment with the center. I'm not going to completely overlap these. That should be enough for me to figure it out when I have more brain available. Okay. And I will say this, as long as we're still hanging around. There's a specific reason I wanted to use a Ned Stark sword reference. Ideally, I would be using Robert Baratheon, because Robert Baratheon was one of the major inspirations for Kintsugi Crown as a song. I've dedicated it to someone else, another member of the VTubing community, naturally. However, inspiration comes from many places. Like Omnicidal, I told you before, yes, I showed you who I'm dedicating it to directly, but in another sense, there's bits of Superman in there. In ways that I could have never planned for. I just let the lyrics flow. And unfortunately, as long as we're talking about a watery deluge, this might be my time to slip out. So, nothing to get into a tempest about. I will try to stream tomorrow, but I'm not betting on that. I have doctors, I have to run some errands, I have to figure out why my meds aren't shipping, and I should be hanging out with my sister at some point. I don't know if I have to keep an eye on her kid or anything, but we'll figure it out. So, family, pharmaceuticals, and fun with the anti-Apple people. And no, I'm not talking about the Android subreddits. No, I'm talking about doctors. Is there a meaningful difference? Neither of them has good handwriting. Regardless, we'll be back for more streaming Wednesday at the latest, because I want to keep going on this art, and I would like it to be done by Thursday night. That way I could have it ready to preview along with the single for Omnicidal. But we'll have to see how that goes, because time may not be on my side. But you know what's on your side? Me finally shutting up so you can have some peace of mind. Have a lovely evening, and I hope to hear from you again soon, see you again soon, just hang out soon. Whether we're drawing or playing, I appreciate your company, and hopefully you appreciate mine. Or at least the fact I'm shutting up. You probably appreciate that more.